And the camera as well, please. Okay. All right, we are going to get started. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to call the meeting to order and let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded. And please stand and join me for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, so we have a number of big items on the agenda for tonight. So, and I will be probably taking a couple of things out of order, just based on when a few people are able to be here. But our first item, or item 2 on the agenda, is citizen statements and petitions. So, I don't see any hands raised in the room or online. So I think we can move on to item 3. And we have approval of meeting minutes. So Jeremy.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Elena. There's a number of executive session ones on here that Katie has worked on to polish up in terms of getting them to a readable format. And then I failed to circulate them to you in time to vote on tonight's meeting. So they will be in the next packet. Start the packet tomorrow to make sure they're in there. So the motion that we'll be looking for is not to include items B through I, but just an approval of the July 17th open session minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from July 17th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chanel, aye.
Oh, okay. So we do have, I guess I will announce, I did not realize it, that you were here yet, Brendan. We do have one remote select board member, Brendan Chanel, who's attending remotely. And so because of that, we will be doing all of our votes, roll call votes. So actually, maybe if we could just, we'll do that again because I did not do mine, roll call. So I guess all in favor. Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Morale, aye.
Chanel, aye.
Thank you. All right. All right. So then next up, the next item is just circulation of minutes for review for approval at a future meeting. So the minutes from our last meeting, August 7th, 2024. This is just to acknowledge that the board should have received those minutes, and then we will vote on those at our next meeting. And then we have next on the agenda, and sorry, I'm looking at an older draft of it, I want to make sure. So item 5, we have some acknowledgements and announcements. First of all, it has come to our attention that there was a long-term volunteer for the town who served on the Parks Commission for 9 years. So Tom Bellin served for three terms on the Parks Commission, and we have been asked to consider to acknowledge him formally. And so this is a question of, how we would like to do this. So I extend my appreciation to Tom Bellin, but I know that Jeremy has gathered some more information about this person and what he's done for the town. So, yeah. Jeremy?
Certainly. So Tom, in addition to serving three-year terms, he's a longtime employee of BVT. He's served on the board and was president of Nipmuc Youth Baseball. He grew up in Mendon, worked in the trades, various trades, and I think has really been an asset to the town. A couple of folks have reached out asking, expressing their appreciation, and I think the board is well positioned to join them. So we've issued citations recently to retiring employees, and so I would look for something like that with the description in here honoring and thanking you for the service to the community.
So, yeah, so I would, if anyone would like to add to that, but I would entertain a motion to have a letter from the board to thank Tom Bellin for his service.
So I move to have the board issue a citation for Tom Bellin in appreciation. I so move. Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'm wondering if the Parks Department has already done a citation as well.
I don't know, but we can find that out. Possibly not right now, but I think, I mean, we can adjust our verbiage if we write a letter. Yes, oh, hi, oh, okay, yes.
We have talked about doing some sort of appreciation. Well, that's what I was going to suggest, whether there was something to be done at the beach, or if we could schedule it here at this meeting and just recognize Tom for all of his years of service, and like you pointed out, not just on the Parks Department, but in the town and Mendon Youth Baseball and all of his service at Valley Tech. Is also a member of the Brotherhood of Bush. Very much involved.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we can be in touch with the Parks Commission about additional details. Was there another hand? Or?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to get John's attention to remember the swag.
Yes. And also just a reminder, as much as possible, we've been reminded that for people joining remotely and watching the recordings, it's very hard to hear anything that's being said in the room that is not into a microphone. So please, everyone, help us remember to keep using the microphones. Those of you who are watching remotely, please let us know if we stray from the microphones. I understand that if we turn our heads away from the microphones, it sometimes doesn't come through. So we have someone in the room. So John Dudley, who's on the Parks Commission, did answer our question that the Parks Commission may also be doing something to honor the individual. Okay. Any further discussion? All right. So all in favor? Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Chanel, I.
Great, thank you very much. And then also on our acknowledgements, so at a previous meeting, we discussed how we were honoring the Senior of the Year, Ann Mazar. And we also discussed that there was Senior Citizen Day, which is September 8th, 2024. And to commemorate Senior Citizen Day, as well as honor our Senior of the Year, there is a lunch at the Unitarian Church of Mendon Uxbridge at 11:30 on September 8th. And this is open to anyone who would like to join the celebration. So anyone who would like to, please call the Council on Aging. The number is 508-478-6175 to register. You can also find that number on the website as well. But please do call or stop by the Senior Center to let them know that you want to register. All right. Are we at 6? We have a public hearing coming up at 6:40, which we will wait till 6:40 to start that. It's a continuation of a hearing. And since I don't know that we have anything short enough to fit in to the minute and a half.
Could open the warrant.
I think that will be a longer discussion.
Oh, okay.
Because we need to talk about dates.
Yeah, and then we set the deadline for when the warrant closes as well, and that keys off of when the meeting date is.
We should have this conversation to fill the time then.
We could have the conversation about what we could talk about for a minute and a half. Is it?
You got 40 seconds.
Okay, all right. We're pretty good at filling in this time.
The select board's next regular meeting is September 4th, and
Okay.
planning board has a joint meeting with the select board to review the housing production plan on September 16th. It's the shortest agenda item.
Okay, all right. So, almost there. Like watching paint dry. I'm just staring at the clock.
So the public hearing notice was read at the last meeting, and it was posted as a continuation on our website the day after our last meeting. So here, just have to open the hearing
Okay.
with a description of what it is, which is in the motions here. You don't have to read the whole.
Okay, great. All right, well, I think I can read the item. So item 6 is continuation of the public hearing at 6:40 p.m. Oh, there it is. A hearing to consider the request of Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, and Verizon New England, Inc. to locate poles, wires, and fixtures number 308-36342. So I'd be looking for a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion, all right, all in favor, Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
I.
So the hearing is now reopened. And I believe that we have someone from National Grid to talk to us about this. Jeremy, do you have any other comments?
Welcome back.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
So some of the, thank you for joining us. Some of the questions from last time, I hope you got a chance to take a look. Residents were looking, questions about trees. One, to know why it was on that particular side of the road and rather than not on the Hopedale side. They're residents that were going to be impacted directly and in their view negatively by the project, and would like a little bit more detail on the reason for the proposed locations.
So,
Sorry, could you introduce yourself?
Jeff Silva, National Grid. The existing poles are there. I believe either there's road work going on for the town of Mendon in that area.
Possibly.
Yeah,
Mr. Highway Surveyor?
yes.
Well, the discussion, that we're talking about the intersection of Plain Street and Hartford Ave.
Hartford Ave,
East.
correct.
And at this time, as I explained last time, the town of Hopedale, wants a traffic light at the intersection. And there's some confusion about who has jurisdiction, who needs to sign. It's been in front of their planning board a couple of different times. They've
Okay.
changed their plans, and then they've asked us to, at one point, to sign a road opening permit, but then the planning board changed and said that they don't need to open the road. They don't need us to allow them to open the road. That's the last anecdotal information that I have. So I guess our question about this hearing is, what exactly is it that you're going to do with the poles? Are you putting new poles there? Are you relocating them?
They're
Or you just-
being, from what I've gathered, was they're being relocated for the road work that's going to be there. So they're not going to switch to the other side. They're just getting either pushed back or moved slightly for the road work to commence.
So this electric distribution petition from National Grid that's in the packet. So this is where they are now, or where they're going to be moved to, or?
That's the one, that's where they're going to be, I believe. Those are the poles that are going to be relocated. And then they're going to be adding a pole box on Talbot Farm Road.
That's what that square box is, and is that dotted line underground?
That is underground, correct.
So basically, that's where it's going from above down underground.
To feed Talbot Farm.
And this is where it's going to be. You don't know where it is right now.
I don't think there is a pole box in that area.
So is this just to put the pole box in? Because obviously Talbot Farm has already been fed. I mean, houses are in there.
But I think
right?
in order to move that pole, it has to get refed.
Okay, so that's my question. So is this pole, which if we're looking at the where the box is, that's basically diagonally across the opening of Talbot Farm, and there's a pole on the corner of Talbot Farm and Hartford Ave East. Is that the new location, or?
I believe that is going to be the new location of the
New
pole.
location on the corner, and you don't know where it is right now? Or if there is a pole, there's got to be a pole there someplace, right?
I believe there is probably a pole at the corner of Talbot Farm and Plain Street. On the opposite side, and they're moving it over
Okay, so
to
what they
the,
want to do is relocate the pole to the opposite side of the road.
I believe so, yes, based on what the drawing says.
P62 or P52?
It'd be 62.
So 62 from the left to the right, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the only pole because you're changing the span distance.
I believe that's the only pole. It's hard to tell. I didn't draw this.
Yeah.
I'm just here to speak about it. But based on what I'm looking at, everything as a solid line is already existing overhead conductors from pole to pole.
Okay,
So if it was previous,
so there is, the dotted line is what's new.
the dotted line to the pole box is going to be new, which is
So-
proposed install underground cable.
So Jeremy brought up Google Street View, and there is, so you can see where the pole is, and that is, so is that Talbot Farm and Hartford Avenue East? Okay, so it looks like that's where it is.
Yeah, so where
It's-
that dotted line is coming from for the pole box that you're talking about, that pole currently exists and is on the corner right now.
Okay.
I'm not counting all of them directly, but there is a series of poles on that side of Hartford Avenue
Right,
East
so
as
I
they
wouldn't-
exist right now.
So it sounds to me like National Grid doesn't know what work they're doing.
I can dig deeper to find out. The person that designed the job was on vacation. I can figure out what exactly is going to go out there and actually go to the job site and say, okay, what is the plan? But based on what I'm looking at, it's hard to tell other than pole 62 would be moving and then they would run underground to a pole box for Talbot Farm Road Drive.
Can I interject here? Sorry, this is Brendan Chanel on the phone.
Please do.
I just wanted to point out that the job description says that it's relocating 6 poles. And that actually fits with the key on the legend as well. Like a pole with a slash through it looks like it's a new pole or relocated pole. So I want to read into it. It says Hartford Ave East relocates 6 JO poles on Hartford Ave East, beginning at a point approximately 13 feet northwest of center line on the intersection of Hartford Ave East and continuing approximately 25 feet in a southeast direction, and then install the underground facilities on Talbot Farm Drive. And then, yeah, and it goes on.
1, 2, 3, 4. So that's every single pole on Hartford Avenue.
Blow that up a little bit, Jeremy, because maybe we can't see those.
Which one do you want to see?
So they are circles with lines through them. You have to get very.
Yeah, so I think they're all being moved.
Okay, yep, okay.
So I guess, but the diagram shows where they're going to be moving to, but it doesn't show where they currently are.
So it's a 6 poles on the Mendon side of the road.
Right.
Does it give the distances on the write-up?
Description, let's see. I don't think, it doesn't, no, it doesn't say.
Just relocating 74 feet of 2 to 3 inch ducts from all riser pole to the riser pole location.
Actually, let's see, is that, if we think, can we bring up the petition? Is that in I think it's the next,
Is it the next one?
is it the one before?
It's 2 before.
2 before.
That second to last paragraph there.
Beginning at point 13 feet northwest of center line on Hartford Ave, 25 feet
That-
east southeast direction.
And I know we discussed what JO means, but I don't remember. What does JO stand for?
Joint owned, so it is National Grid and Verizon owned.
Yeah, okay.
You're welcome.
the question
Yes.
from the resident was why this public hearing was continued was why are the poles on this side of the road and not the other side of the road?
Well, I think that was the gist of it. I mean, obviously, it's the pole in question we've been talking about in the corner is right in front of their house. You know, in front of their driveway, their point of egress, and, you know, on the other, apparently it was not there before.
Well,
It's being moved onto their side, which I think is because they need to get, you know, an anchor point, right, to get that.
Right,
Correct.
They can't run the feed under
Can't
the,
run the
under
feed.
the road.
Well,
Is that,
I think they could, but they don't want to. But,
So typically, what happens is, based on, that pole was probably moved, I haven't looked at it, because of the strain going towards Plain Street, you need counter, to counter that. I don't know what it looks like for that property there, but if he had to shift it over to prevent it from being in the way of the driveway, I think it kind of makes sense.
So what you're telling me is the way it's laid out right now is for strain relief and safety.
Correct.
sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
The gentleman was explaining that the reason it's located where it is because of the size of the span. It's for strain relief and safety of the poles and security.
Okay.
And it would be much better, and I think the highway surveyor could correct me, but it's much better for them to, you know, to open the road and put it across Talbot Farm than going across Hartford Ave east. You know, that roadway, because it takes a lot more traffic, a lot more wear and tear.
Also, if you already have existing lines there, to move the whole existing line to the other side of the road is a cost that would actually go to the ratepayers of Massachusetts and not, wouldn't be that cost
Right,
effective.
so in other words, it's basically what it sounds like is National Grid's designed it to be minimally invasive, but at the minimum it needs to make it safe and
Correct,
operative.
correct.
right?
Correct.
And so, I mean, it looks like, right, so these are existing poles that will be moving there.
Well, existing lines and all the joint-owned poles are gonna be moved to these locations.
The poles more than likely are probably anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6 feet from where their location is.
Okay.
But for us to move it more than 3 feet, we have to come to the town and say, we need to repetition the poles.
And just to refresh everybody's memory, the concern with the residents were specifically, why are you putting this here? You know, in front of my house like this now, you know, why are you moving it? And what you're saying is because of the topography of the area where the wires are lined up. And for the strain relief and safety, that's from an engineering standpoint where it needs to be.
Correct.
I mean, that
So,
wasn't,
so if you have more angles, you need more guy wires to prevent from putting too much strain on the pole. So you try to keep it in line with as much as you can to only have one anchor to support that pole.
so just, I mean, I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I just wanted to clarify, these poles exist on this side of the street today,
Yes.
but they're being relocated on the same side they currently exist on.
Correct.
But now one is potentially landing in a,
One of the residents who's being affected came and wanted to know exactly why they couldn't put it on the other side. And the discussion was he was going to find out. And now we're looking at the diagram and he's given us an explanation.
and we need to do the underground cables. This whole work is being done, is being generated out of the work done on Plain Street. Is that correct? So we're doing, relocating things and adding a new power box for Talbot Farms or whatever that is there,
And National Grid is
based
because
on the
of-
fact that
for the
we now
needs
have
of
power,
that. Yes.
send power down Plain Street in Hopedale.
Or reconstructing the intersection, which again comes back to, if you look at this, where the town line is, all of this work is going to be done really on Hartford Ave in Mendon.
Yep.
And the discussion I've had throughout the summer was that our planning board was informed, approved and signed off on it. I spoke to the planning board chair. He said they were never informed or didn't know anything about it. And then I was told that Hopedale went back to the planning board, redesigned everything so that it was all being done in Hopedale and would not need any kind of permission from Mendon, but I've yet to see that. I know that you were gonna have a meeting, which is still being scheduled, or?
Some are already scheduled, some are still to be scheduled.
But if the utility already has all the power on the other side of the street, they're.
Yeah.
It's
If-
like the expense to move all the power to the other side of the street.
And to me, if the work isn't gonna affect that side of the road, and the only reason for the poles to be moved was due to Plain Street and the configuration of it, if that's not gonna proceed forward, then
It's not gonna get moved.
Then
So
it's not gonna move.
this is, in other words, all of this is contingent on everything else on the corner of Plain Street. moving
Correct.
Forward. So the other discussion we had then was.
Thank you.
This isn't urgent because, there's a lot of other things that are still up in the air. But if it goes forward, this is National Grid's response to relocating these joint old poles.
This is a cart before the horse a little bit.
Well, no, I think when they did all this, I think actually they're probably the most proactive.
No, well, my point is, I don't feel there's a need for us to take a vote on this particular plan at this time,
Right,
because none of the actual bigger projects
right.
are finalized.
What I'm saying is, and I think what Mike's saying is, I would prefer that we, I guess, postpone this hearing further pending,
your discussion,
exactly, the discussions with the two town administrators to actually figure out exactly what's going here and exactly what's gonna happen.
I think that's a wise decision.
And I mean, I think it would be useful to know where exactly the existing poles are and to see, how it affects the houses.
If we could get the driveway cut-ins on this, that's probably all we
Well,
really.
I think the chair makes a great point. We need to see the whole plan, not just a piece of it.
Right. I mean, I remember that the residents were concerned about some trees that needed to be removed.
It was
That was
concerned-
like
they were
power
concerned about-
trees and, they were, you answered the question about how long power would be off and that they would be notified.
Right.
Yeah, that,
They're concerned
tall
about the
trees
whole-
would be, the whole.
Right.
I'm concerned about the whole thing.
The pole that's currently in front of 99 Hartford Avenue East has 4 or 5 tall mature trees right around it. So I would imagine there would be tree trimming or.
So you're gonna move it.
Yeah.
Well, depending on where, right, we don't know where that proposed location is, with respect to, say, the trees.
So more than likely, the pole would move to a more straight of an angle. So if there is a anchor on it, they would push it out 2 feet to accommodate a straighter pole line. That's typically how
Oh,
it gets designed,
Okay,
but we all know that nothing is perfect.
So
okay.
I'd like to continue this hearing and table it until we get more information.
So we can
Yes.
continue to a future date, a more appropriate date. We don't have to set a date right now, and then we'll re-advertise and do everything when the board decides more appropriate.
Okay.
Do you know when your meeting would be with Hopedale?
Within the next 2 to 3 weeks, depending on which piece of the puzzle we're talking about.
Okay.
So it won't be at our next select board meeting that this is continued.
Not a problem. I'm actually gonna drive by there tomorrow.
Okay,
Alright.
great, thank you.
Have a fantastic day.
All right,
Have a
thank
great
you.
one.
So maybe we'll see you
Thank you.
next time. So do we need to do anything voting with respect to
We just
Hearing.
make a motion to continue the
continue
hearing.
it?
Yep, exactly.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
all right. So further discussion. All right, so roll call vote. Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Morale, aye.
Janelle, did we set a date? I couldn't quite
Well,
follow.
the date has not been set because it's pending the town administrators meeting with Hopedale officials to figure out the rest of this whole project and what's actually going on.
Okay, clear. So the date will be set and then advertised appropriately. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I move to close the 6:40 public hearing for poll.
I don't know,
No, we have to
actually.
close it.
Oh, we don't?
Continued. We just
Oh,
continued it.
sorry.
Yeah,
My bad.
that's okay.
I was just testing if you were paying attention.
All right. Great. All right. Thank you all. That was more discussion than we expected. But it was good that we had that discussion. All right, so our next item is the Community Choice Power Supply Program, another public information session. And we have Mark Capadona here from Colonial Power to tell us a little bit about the program. So thank you for joining us again. This, by the way, is the third information session that we're having. There was a hybrid session here that was put on by the Land Use Committee, and then there was an in-person session at the Senior Center, and so now this is our third session, also hybrid. So thank you for joining us again.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Mark Capadona, Colonial Power, 5 Mount Royal Ave, Marlboro. Denise Allard from Colonial Power is also online, just to hold down the fort. So tonight I'm just here quickly because I think everyone's up to date. First thing I wanted to announce on the program, to have opted out of the program, the 30-day opt-out has just passed, as a matter of fact, yesterday. We've built in some extra time, if somebody has a desire to opt out of the program, has received this, and wishes to get out of the program, could certainly do so online, and we'll try to get that in. There'll just be savings for a month, and we get you out if we miss that date. It's difficult with utilities, but I just wanted to let everyone know the actual date has expired as far as prior to this program ever beginning. So this program is about electricity. It's about the supply portion of your bill, and it's about a choice the town has now brought to the residents and businesses of Mendon. So from that perspective, if you've received this letter, then you have a choice to make, and this program's all about choice. If you haven't received a letter, I want to tell you that you're on third-party supply or you have a block on your account. But if you've received this letter, the town has left you a couple of choices in front of you that you can make. So everyone will be enrolled in the standard product, which has 10% more mass class 1s or local renewables than are required by law. So it's a little greener and a little bit cheaper. That's where everyone will go. But they've also given 2 choices. They've also given you and that price is $14,450. You could also choose an optional basic. That's the same thing as basic service. It meets all the renewable portfolio standards. All the correct renewables are in it, and that price would be $14,020. And then they have done their gold standard, which is 25% more mass class 1s at again still below the basic service rate, but it's $15,080. Basic service, so everyone knows, on August 1st just changed to $16,055. So by a choice, meaning if you receive this program is opt out. Meaning if you received it, we're going to switch your supply portion of your bill. You're still going to be with National Grid. Just a line item change on your bill, you're going to be paying a little bit less for your electricity. That's the only change that's going to happen. But if you threw this in the trash or you're just holding on to it, you will be switched. It does require, this program requires you to make a choice. It's simple for people that want to participate. You don't need to do anything. If you wish to opt out, though, you need to act. And here's the good news. Town set up the program. You can opt out of this program at any point in time. You can opt out of it, and then you can opt back into it. Only on your meter read every other month, but you can do so. They're not trying to tie anyone to anything. They're trying to bring options to the marketplace. Next point, I'm just trying to be quick. Any of the benefits that you receive through utility, and I'm going to say budget billing, solar, automatic withdrawal, low-income discount, farm discount, any of those things all stay in place. Those are utility programs, and they all stay where they are. You don't need to do a thing. If you participate in this program, they'll all work seamlessly. So right now, given everyone's background, that's the kind of the quick 101, but I'd like to answer questions if anyone had specific questions moving forward.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Jeremy Stoll, Town Administrator. We've met a couple times, Mark. Is there anything different for tax-exempt customers? Anything for not-for-profits that they have to do differently?
Great point, Jeremy. So right on the notice, if you happen to be a 501c3 or some other 403b or have you, you need, so just let me explain. I think it's a difficult process, but National Grid says the supply portion of your bill is on that new supplier. So we need to send to the supplier of the town's program, which is Direct Energy, and it's right on this form. You just need to send them your tax exempt certificate. By the way, great point, Jeremy. If you don't send that, believe it or not, what happens is you receive tax on your next bill. When you get back to us, we can always go back and then rehack the taxes back from National Grid. It just makes it so much more seamless if you're a tax-free entity to send in that tax-free certificate. It's something you have to do every 2 years in Massachusetts right now. That's a great point, Jeremy, for any church or organization like that.
Thank you.
Yes, Amy. Yes, there was it's a question from the room in case people couldn't hear it. So this was in the Upton Mendon Free Press oh, lovely, thank you. So yes, it was, and there's information online as well on the town website, on the town administrator's page.
I just wanted, I work at the senior center with the Council on Aging. I'm wondering if we should put something in our next newsletter, letting people know that this did go into effect. You know, just in case someone did put that piece of paper away or aside, that this did go into effect, that they do still have a choice if they need to, but it's only changing that supplier portion.
Right.
That is
It
correct.
could be just something very simple, not this in depth, you know.
Right.
Because someone might say, why
Oh,
didn't my bill change?
that would be great. And for those, if people couldn't hear that online, Amy Kent Wilson suggested that she could put something in the senior newsletter about this program just for information ongoing in case people have missed these sessions or missed the instructions about what to do if they want to opt differently in the program.
Correct. And one thing I should say, 866-485-5858, extension 1. You call, that's what we answer these questions across Massachusetts. So please give us a call if you have a question. That's what the town's hired us to do, is answer those questions so that everyone has the correct information moving forward.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, it's 866-485-5858, extension 1.
And I would also say that on the town side, there are people who are also available to answer questions. We may, in fact, go to Colonial Power to get the answers, but Jeremy Stoll, our town administrator, has fielded a number of questions or gotten questions that he's then passed on to Colonial Power to get the answers. The Land Use Committee is also happy to answer questions, so we have a number of volunteers on the Land Use Committee who would be happy to answer questions as well. So, and the Land Use Committee has an email that's posted on the town website under Town Boards and Committees. Any other questions? Yes.
So I have a question. I did not get the letter because I am a third party. So my question is, when my contract is up, I heard you say every other month, if it's not at the proper time, so we need something?
Correct. So you have more choices.
Yeah.
So right now your choice is you go to them and you say to them, I don't know how long you've been in the contract, but you're going to have someone, hey, listen, is there any fee or penalty to leave? If not, just get.
Well, I'm currently a lower rate, so I would not
Awesome.
leave until it's over.
Correct. And at that point, you're going to speak to them and ask, hey, if you can't meet this rate, I'm going to go here. Lots of times they will meet the rate with the third party. And if not, you simply don't have to say anything. If you opt into this program, we'll automatically drop you from their program. Just make sure there's no fee.
But I have to opt into that.
That is correct.
And what is the timing? Because I know when you switch from these, there's a 2 or 3 month
So
switch over time, and you have to be very careful or you get stuck in that 1 month.
So you will, as long as you opt out prior to the program ending that you're on, the following month, you'll be enrolled in this program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to say the overall message, I'm going to sum up. It's been coming here a lot, and so I'm super clear now. It's generally 2 cents cheaper right now per kilowatt hour, 25% more green energy, opt out at will, right?
10% more. They could
10%.
opt up. They could opt up to the 25, but the one that everyone's going in, 10% more.
10% more than staying with National Grid.
That is correct.
Everything's good in general.
In general, I'm hoping that the calls have started to slow because we have seen it at Colonial as well.
Great. Are there any further questions? Either anyone online or in the room? Oh, yes.
So we will enroll the customers with their September meter read. So they'll see it on their bill. We use energy and then we pay for it. So on your October bill, you will actually see this on your National Grid bill.
And it's a 24-month fixed rate.
Ah, thank you.
24 months.
Yeah, no, I read that. I was just trying to figure out because I end October, November timeframe, so I wasn't sure.
Great. All right. If there are no more questions, and I will thank you again to Colonial Power for joining us and giving us all of this information. You've been very helpful, and I'm sure we'll still be in touch. So
100%. If you ever need this again, just let us know.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Ah, okay. So next up. So next up, item 8 on the agenda is the Providence Street Culvert presentation. And I understand that we have a representative of Ty and Bond on remotely, and we also have John Dudley here from Mendon Highway. You wanna start?
Thanks. I wanted to introduce you guys to Chris Hool. He's the senior project manager who's been handling the project for Providence Road. I sent out some information to you guys with some conceptual designs and monetary figures estimates. I just kind of want to go over those. The first conceptual design would be a 3-sided aluminum box culvert with a price tag of roughly $1.1 million. Second would be a 4-sided reinforced box culvert that is concrete. That is a price tag of roughly 1.7 million. And then the third alternative is a 3-sided rigid framed concrete culvert with a price tag of roughly 1.6 million. Chris and I did talk, and my recommendation after talking with him, given the strength of the structure and the traffic and lifespan that goes along with them, is to pursue the 3-sided rigid frame concrete culvert. It's going to hold up better to the truck traffic and traffic that is on Providence Road, as concrete is stronger than the aluminum. Chris may be able to speak more to that because he's dealt with all these different designs in different locations, but just wanted to kind of have a discussion, and my recommendation is that 3-sided culvert.
So that's alternative 3.
Yes.
What's the length of time we can expect a concrete culvert to stay in service? Is that a 50-year product?
So that would be, we're looking at estimated service life is 75, whereas the aluminum, the contact, who would be the manufacturer of the aluminum culvert, is saying 75 to 100 years, but Chris's engineer, who's done these before, is estimating that more like a 60-year lifespan, whereas the concrete is going to last you 75, and with proper maintenance on it could last longer than that.
And you get the weight, the qualities that you're looking for the heavy trucks and whatnot.
Correct. I mean, if it's not put in place correctly with the aluminum one, if it's not put in place correctly and compacted correctly, you can damage the culvert itself. And we talked about that today. The concrete one, it's concrete. It's more forgiving. It's stronger. It's going to hold up to truck traffic.
Is the current plan to have the highway department install it, or have a contractor?
It's got to go to contract.
Right.
Because this is on Mass DOT's small bridge register, we now have to have it engineered, we have to use a contractor that is approved by Mass DOT to complete this project. I was kind of curious what the difference between alternative 2 and 3 is.
Chris, you could probably speak more to that, the differences in alternative 2 and 3.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, members of the select board, for having me tonight. I just want to second everything that Jonathan just shared with you. I'll touch on first just the service life quickly. As Jonathan explained, our Ty and Bond is recommending, approximately a 60-year service life for the aluminum structure and approximately a 75-year service life for the concrete structure. I do want to highlight that those service lives could be much greater than that with proper maintenance, inspection, maintenance, etc. As Jonathan indicated, this is a very heavy truck route. So I do sort of agree with his recommendation that concrete is probably a better choice here. Both are rated to HL 93 rated for the design here, which is essentially the heavy truck traffic. But the thing about aluminum structures is they haven't been around that long, and that's kind of why Contech they've done a lot of research in terms of and materials that they share on their website and in communication with them to say, hey, these products will last as long as concrete, but at the end of the day, they haven't been around that long, whereas concrete, it has. That's a tested service life. So we feel confidently in that recommendation of a 75-year service life for that, for the concrete options. To answer the question about the difference of the alternative 2 and alternative 3, which is alternative 2 is the 4-sided box culvert, and alternative 3, which is the 3-sided box culvert. That's essentially the difference. Is one is an open bottom structure and one is a closed bottom structure. And I would we outlined that alternative 2 based on our scope and discussions that we've had with the town sort of back since February, but I would not advise alternative 2 because of the site conditions. It's likely, and we can verify this with our geotechnical boring program, is it's likely that we would encounter bedrock at this site, or at least significant large boulders. And for installing a box culvert, you need a completely level surface. And here that you'd likely have a lot higher cost, potentially even higher than we projected here, depending on the amount of ledge that was uncovered. And you'd have to remove all of that ledge or boulder in order to install that structure. Whereas a 3-sided box, you only need to remove ledge or boulders for the footing design. In some cases, you can actually work with the ledge depending on its integrity. So, I agree with Jonathan's suggestion that the 3-sided box culvert is probably the best applicable for this site. All 3 will work. There's just, there's trade-offs with each one.
Yeah, I guess my question was more around just the wording. The descriptions are different, right? Reinforced box culvert versus rigid frame. So I was just curious if that meant anything. If it's just a question of 4 sides versus 3 and the bedrock question, I'm all good with the recommendation. I'm just more curious because the description sounds different.
Yeah, they're slightly different in terms of more the name than anything, but they're concrete structures with reinforced concrete, reinforced with steel. So they're similar in that regard.
It looks like from pictures that there's an iron frame that goes through the 3-sided one, and the other one is done with reinforced with rebar. But
I'll pull up the
I just broke my screen.
No, okay. So I see the pictures you're referring to. No, they're both precast structures. They both have reinforced concrete within them. The major difference, again, for the rigid frame versus the concrete box is that one is an open bottom and one isn't. The rest is really kind of just semantics in the names and the terminology. I think what you're seeing in the image for alternative 3 is a is a polymer gasket that goes between sections. Each one of these is built in sections because it's transported in smaller sections, like 8 foot or so, that can go on a truck. There are not other significant construction differences for the box or the 3-sided concrete. They're very similar. Just it's really just preparation, which is going to drive that cost difference.
Is there any concern with the 3-sided that erosion will take away what's at the bottom of the river and actually corrupt the integrity of the footings? Whereas if it was sealed on the bottom of the concrete, it would protect it and make it last longer, or is that not, am I missing the point?
Yeah, so for the 3-sided box, we would be designing a footing system for that. And thank you for the images here. We would be designing a footing system for that. That would go down below the frost line, so at least 4 feet. And as part of that, we would be doing a scour analysis as well and appropriately sizing the stream bed material that goes back into that box. It'd be similar to what you see at the site. If you were to go, walk up the river or walk down the river, you'd expect to see something similar to that channel bed. To answer your question about is there concern for scour, that is all part of the design process. We would do that at time bond. We would submit that to Mass DOT and their engineers would review that. Both structures are very common throughout the state, but in terms of meeting what's called the Massachusetts River and Stream Crossing Standards, which is one regulation, I guess, for lack of a better term, that will drive either of these options. How they're ultimately designed from a stream bed perspective is that the 3-sided better conforms with those standards, whereas the box structure, you wouldn't actually see that concrete bottom. That would be embedded at least 2 feet, as you can see in the top part of the screen right now. It says a 2-foot minimum stream bed material. So from a visual perspective, you wouldn't notice a difference. The one risk with the box culvert is because you only have 2 feet of that material, you do then in that case have a chance that stream bed could wash away and maybe have to go back at some point in time to sort of put some of that material back in. So I feel much more comfortable with the stream bed for the alternative 3, the 3-sided box.
And then we're just going to disrupt the stream where the footings are, and the rest of it stays as natural.
Yeah, exactly. We'd work within the stream bed as much as we can. Some of which might not have to be disturbed at all. But all that material that would come out of the stream bed, it would just be temporarily stockpiled off on the side, and that would go right back in. That would be what we'd want to use. We'd supplement it probably with some larger stone to sort of provide that safety factor to get at the previous comment. But yes, that material would go right back in place. I'll just add to the construction timelines for both of those options are quite similar. The only disadvantage, maybe slight disadvantage for alternative 2 is just you have the unknown about ledge, where if you encounter much more, it just might take longer to remove.
And the costs would go up, right?
The cost would go up, yeah.
Right.
We've applied a consistent assumption across all 3 options for ledge removal as part of the cost estimating, but like I said, it is slightly an unknown. We've done borings, but without doing an exhaustive boring program, there's always assumptions there.
Right. So
Yep.
thank you. Are there? Brendan, you have a question?
Yeah, this is Brendan. Just for completeness, what's the timeline relative for alternative number 1? Because I think we talked about 2 and 3, but not 1 for timelines.
The construction timeline, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Did
he's
not
talking
catch-
about the construction timeline for the aluminum versus the two concrete options.
The construction timelines are all similar for all three options. If the road is closed and the full detour is in place, you're looking at a roughly 3 to 4 months. It could be on the earlier side of that in this case because there isn't not many utilities that would provide complications here, which is a positive. And then if it's a phased construction where essentially you need to keep a lane open, you'd be looking at a much longer timeline of 4 to 6 months. And that's the same across all options. There's negligible difference between negligible difference between alternatives based on the material type. The only thing that would change that is maybe a lead time for procuring those structures. And that varies, but with ample time, wouldn't necessarily. If the bid was out like months before you wanted to build the project, then it would not. It might not come into play.
Thank you.
Just one more question on the aluminum versus concrete. If I understand what I heard was aluminum, this is a newer solution being used in the marketplace, and the stated life of aluminum being, quote, 60 years is stated to be that, but it's so new that we don't have so many that have lasted 60 years, or has it been in the market for 60 plus years?
It has not been in the market for 60 plus years. I mean, aluminum culverts have been in the market. The specific structure that we outlined in the alternative has not been around. So that's where the manufacturer makes their estimates based on other similar type of structures, that have been maybe installed for longer periods of time. So, but at the end of the day, they haven't been around for 75 to 100 years, where you kind of have been with these concrete structures that we're talking about here. So it's tested versus not tested.
Right.
I'm not, I will say that the aluminum is very much used across New England. I provided some other documentation to Jonathan that had like some example sites across Massachusetts where it's been used.
15 different examples across Massachusetts in different towns where it's been used.
Yeah.
Do we know what the towns feel about the
I have not
solution?
I have not reached out to them.
What I'm hearing is we have surety with concrete, we have a promise with aluminum, and we have a $500,000 difference in price tag.
Yep.
Correct.
But over 100 years.
Well, I mean, we're talking between 60 to 70 year. I mean, aluminum claims to be on par with concrete. We just don't know it. So, I mean, if it fails in 20 years, then oops, right? If it's aluminum.
We can't spread the difference across 100 years because we're paying for it now.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a.
Yeah, ROI.
I guess one question I have is, when do we need to decide this? I mean, and what, so I know, so we've engaged Ty and Bond to do this engineering study. Is there additional work after this?
There's additional engineering once we decide on which
Once we make that decision?
which decision we'd make.
Is there any kind of a warranty or guarantee when you talk, with the aluminum, if we do put the aluminum in and it fails in 20 years, they're going to come in and re-engineer it?
That I don't know, and that Chris.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head what the manufacturer guarantees are. I will say that if it gets to that, there's often finger pointing where it's the contractor says it's the manufacturer and the manufacturer says it's the contractor install. So there's a little bit of question mark there, but I can certainly look into what the stated manufacturer guarantee is on that.
Yeah, I guess the real question, though, I understand that they're going to finger point to each other, but at the end of the day, if they give us a length of time and it's supposed to last for 60 years or 70 years and it lasts 20, then insurance or somebody's just going to replace it. We won't have to pay for it all over again. And that's my question.
Yeah, to be clear, I mean, they're recommended or estimated service lives. They're not it's not a 75-year guarantee. I can verify that.
I can,
I-
I can reach out to contact and get some more
That
information
would be
on
the
that.
big question. Is there any one of these that, once we do it, we know that we're not gonna have this expense again for another 60 years because, you know, all of them are gonna be that good, or is there no, or is one providing us with some kind of a bond or warranty that the other one doesn't? So we don't have to keep doing this over and over again.
How long did we get out of our current solution? 30 years?
Some longer than that.
Longer than that? And that was an aluminum pipe.
That was corrugated steel.
Steel.
Not aluminum.
Not aluminum.
Yeah.
Okay. Steel can rust, aluminum can't.
Well, it wasn't, the issue was that they essentially collapsed.
Yeah. Right, I'm just trying to compare what we have, just so people understand that very low tech
And I have
solution
no,
lasted 50
I don't
years.
have a record as to when that was installed on Providence Road.
So
And the rest of
before
it
the
doesn't,
highway
and that doesn't really matter because we can't
Right,
do that again.
right.
No, I know.
But it's a great point. It's not high tech. It's,
Right, it lasted a long time. So if this high-tech solution is cheaper and purported to last longer than the current low-tech solution, it, although I don't like the way it looks as much as the concrete. So.
so I would just suggest you stay on the road.
Don't go down there and go fishing.
But that would be my question, John, would be is, you know, is there any kind of a
Guarantee.
warranty, bond, whatever, that we, you know, that we don't have to, we're not gonna have this expense again for 50 years or, you know, because honestly, if we know that we're all set for 50 years, I mean, I would go with any of these options, I would go with the cheapest one.
Yeah, I will definitely check on the guarantees, but I will say they will not be on the order of 50 years. I mean, they may be on the order of 5 years.
So what's the
Just to
point
set
about-
expectations here, yeah.
So what's the difference, 60, 75, or 300? If it's only gonna be guaranteed 5 years, then.
Fair point. Just a question of timing. So what you're looking, we need to choose a direction, right? And then you have for more engineering, which is currently funded to continue progress through October. Is that right?
So there's more to after these conceptual designs that we have to continue.
Well, for our current scope, the main deliverables were what you have in hand, the design plans, the cost estimates, and then an accompanying report that summarizes all the data collection that we did and some of the findings from it. And we'll obviously discuss these three alternatives. What I had suggested to Jonathan previously was that if there was a decision prior to us finalizing our report, then we could include, a preferred, town preferred alternative as part of that. And that just, it kind of streamlines things, I guess, for the next phase. If alternatively, we deliver the report that talks about these three alternatives and you make that decision when you all are ready. That's at the conclusion of our scope. So we are pretty far along with it. We don't have much more other than to prepare and package up that report that I was just discussing.
So for all intents and purposes, this phase is nearing completion. The available funding that you had has been expended. Any next steps, once a decision's made, we need to allocate and identify new sources of funding. If we were to choose one of these projects, we need to identify funding on the order of $1.5 million. And that would mean we need to think about special town meeting, because this was a project we wanted to probably get after so that we had it repaired and a more permanent solution within a year's time frame from when we first started
Yeah,
talking
I
about
think
it.
when we discussed this before, we were talking about securing grants for this.
That was my other question.
To
Jumped right to it.
to get into the grant season, we're looking at next spring. And then awarded grants, if it happens, if we get awarded grants to fix these, we're looking at next fall for the money. And then could we get it in the fall? Maybe, but more realistic, we're looking at the spring of the following year.
But I just want to be, this whole grant process, John, has always been extended. I want to make sure we get we're putting our grants out there, best foot forward, so that we're not continually chasing a 6-month lead time. right? Because when we first talked about this, we had engineering grants, then we had implementation grants. The implementation grants were coming due in this fall, I think, and we first started talking about the project. But we didn't hit that window. So I want to make sure we're hitting every window we can here. Otherwise, right now,
It's easier with the one-stop grant program, because all of those, there's one place you go to.
and I think Chris is helping with some identification of grants as well, right? So a lot
We
of,
have talked about that, yes.
yeah, I don't know if you want a quick update on what you've used in the past and some of the timing on grants, so we can kind of make our decisions and move.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one that we've talked about in the past was Mass DOT Small Bridge Grant Program, and they have 2 cycles, one in the spring and one in the fall. So I think we'd be, assuming we wrap this up, have that conversation with DOT. Jonathan has a contact there, so could bring this to them for the fall.
In order to get in the queue for that, do we have to have this done?
Yes.
In order to hit the construction grant with them, we have to have an engineered plan that is signed off with Mass DOT for them to even consider us for construction.
Do you know what the typical lead time is for Mass DOT to sign off?
I don't.
So but the next question we need to have answered is, is there any kind of a warranty, guarantee, or anything for whoever's going to install this, and from the manufacturer that guarantees that this isn't going to fail? Like what we're dealing with right now with the current situation where it's collapsed.
Right. So I will be reaching out to these.
Okay.
And Chris, maybe you have some manufacturers for the concrete structures. We have the information for the aluminum structure that I can reach out to them.
Yeah, and we have contact. We have a contact at Contech that we've been working with for this design. So we could put you in touch with them, or we can just reach out and ask that question. And then in terms of the concrete manufacturers, there's, this would just come from probably a local precast company, local or, New Hampshire. Contractors often use New Hampshire manufacturers sometimes too, depending. So relatively local or regionally local. So we can look into that. I mean, usually those are covered under the guarantees and warranties section of a bid package. So whatever the town specifies as contractor must guarantee their work for X number of years, that's what would largely govern many of these instances. The only caveat to that would be if the Contech in this case would provide a stronger guarantee, but it's not going to be, like I said, it's not going to be on the order of 50 years. That's for sure.
But the engineering requirements and plans, everything you described, John, to be eligible for the Mass DOT grants, that is this package, right?
I just want to be clear. So there's 2 steps in Mass DOT. There's a design, you can apply for design funding and you can apply for construction funding. They will not fund construction until you have a design package that they're comfortable with. This is designed to get you to a decision-making process. This package was not designed to be a submittal to MassDOT.
What is the timeline to get a package for submittal to MassDOT, since that's coming up in the fall? And what would that cost be?
Well, to design a project to full specs, construction specs of this size, of this scale, is on the order of $200,000. And I have not provided, a detailed cost estimate for that beyond on that. Part of this study was to inform what direction the town wanted to go, in which case then we could, provide a more detailed design cost estimate.
What's the timeline to produce full engineering specs? If we make a decision tonight, what kind of timeline would we be looking at to get those specs then?
Roughly 9 months. Part of this, aside from just the environmental permitting, a structure of this size has to go to Mass DOT for review and approval, and that takes time.
Fair enough. So spring is the earliest for any of these grant proposals. That's where I'm trying to get to, is understand what our
So can I add some context to the grant?
Please
The
do.
grant is split in between phase 1 and phase 2 funding. Phase 1 funding funds engineering, and it is capped at $100,000 from Mass DOT. And then once those fully engineered plans that Chris is talking about are ready to go, you can apply to the phase 2 funding, which is for the construction,
Right.
and that's capped at $500,000.
So half of the cost of
Or a
just
third.
the equipment, and then another 200K for engineering, so 700 after grants if they're all accepted. On the lowest cost item.
So
600.
I don't know that I follow. So there's a total of $600,000 worth of grants available through the Mass Small Bridge Repair Program. The cheapest alternative, the cheapest option presented tonight, which included a 40% contingency, was $1.1 million just for the construction. So
Right, plus another 200K for engineering.
So engineering has the ability to be covered $100,000 by a grant, so it would be $100,000 for engineering.
50% of engineering covered.
And then of the 1.1 of construction, it has the ability to fund 500,000.
So
we're
they know
talking about
exactly how much these
$700,000
things
in
cost
costs.
and how much to compensate towns for them, because those are pretty exacting numbers.
But I did go to a seminar on these replacements, and I did ask the presenter at the time, I said, so we have a small bridge in town now, we go for a Mass DOT grant. Is there anything that says we cannot use a DER grant on top of that Mass DOT grant? And his explanation to me was you can use as many grants as you
It's not
want.
double dipping, it's just stacking.
Yeah.
Precisely. That's 100% correct.
So getting back to grants, we need to see what are our options, what are the timings, how many of these have been started, if any, so we understand what the potential ask is back to the taxpayers, right?
Sorry, how many, which have been started?
There are different grants out
Oh,
there,
okay,
more than, I
right,
mean, there's
yes.
the likely grant, bridge, small bridges, but I thought I saw some,
There's a culvert grant.
yeah,
Well,
there's
that's
a
why
culvert
that-
grant flying around too.
That's what that one-stop program was supposed to do. So it was to allow you to place with the state that you could apply for a grant, and they would help you.
Are you talking about Grants Central?
It was called the one-stop grant. That's,
So Grant Central is where the Mass DOT grant is based out of right now.
so right now, what we need to do is, we need a little bit more information so we can make a decision on what three of these
Right.
options, and then we can move forward.
Right,
Maybe for the next
Decision.
meeting.
Right,
I
for
feel
next
like it
meeting.
has to be next meeting.
Yeah,
right.
but I think that's one thing, but I think this grant research should be in parallel. We don't need to sequence these
Oh, I agree.
things. We need to understand what those options are.
But you know what, the conversation we've had with this since the winter was all that, once we get a town administrator here, then we'll,
We do have one-stop grant application right now, a $400,000 application for a sample project. You can submit more than one. So Jonathan and I have talked about this stacking grant process. It definitely complicates the administration and the timing and when you can get bid documents together and making sure you're adhering to the procurement requirements of various funding sources. It's all well worth it to get a large project
yes,
paid
because
for.
if you get the grants, then it greatly uncomplicates the process of how to pay for it.
Yeah,
Well,
it gets the project done.
But the
in ways that-
details, whether matching, reimbursing, the
Yeah,
process
it's
around the
fine.
grants is what I'd want to know.
So
That came up last
Mass
time. I remember
Mass
you saying.
DOT's grant is a reimbursing grant.
Okay, so
Still
regardless,
valid.
we got to put something on the warrant.
The phase 2 is reimbursable. The phase 1, it is paid directly to the contractor from Mass DOT. We are not a subrecipient.
So the first round, we would just be 100K or whatever. To pay out immediately.
We can tap
Was
ARPA.
there,
We do have an earmark I was gonna
Yeah.
ask about too, that was 100K.
and do we,
That was the one, when we were talking, the congressman, he knew there was one earmark that we got out of the state. I believe that this is the one.
you have not heard
We're
yet
waiting on a status
about
of whichever one it is. That's
state earmark.
TBD.
I know, right.
My
so-
conversation with Brian Murray said that we would know for sure, and he seemed pretty confident that we would be getting it, but we would know sometime early fall for sure if we were getting that 100,000.
So maybe we can follow up and see if we can have any more information for our next meeting. So it does seem like, yeah, we had some questions, so yeah, we can plan on putting this on our next meeting's agenda.
Okay.
So that's
Is it
September
possible
4th.
to get a little bit more information about where we might fund some of this if we weren't coming
Yeah, that's
directly
gonna
from, okay.
That's gonna be.
Well, that was,
Okay, yeah,
and that
yeah.
was the discussion I had with
Okay.
Jeremy the other day. What if we don't get any grants?
Right, that's what I'm saying, like, let's be prepared for worst case. I
Right.
know there's a lot of money in some various places that are open for this. I don't know what attacking that means.
Right.
So John, this would be one of those capital requests we should be submitting. Oh, I'm sorry, you were not at the meeting, but Jeremy, this should be making its way in the capital plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So any more questions on the,
I will say we're doing
Yes.
we're applying for a grant for a larger culvert inventory study as well. So John and I did talk about having the results of that then folded into the overall capital plan too, which would be a larger view of what culverts are in town.
Presumably, it would be in our favor to get good at this process because we have a lot of culverts. Is that fair to say?
That's not a grant that's in competition for a new grant that might actually fix a culvert, is it?
No, that's what it, Chris, do you remember what
There's no
exactly
conflict,
that
that's
grant
fine.
is for the culvert inventory?
Yeah, it's actually met through Mass DEP, interestingly enough. So
Makes sense.
okay.
And it's what the asset management, is that what it is?
exactly, yeah, culvert asset management. Yep.
So that application has actually been submitted already from Ty and Bond, has taken care of it, and to hear something back.
Great. Thank you. Ed, any other thoughts? I think we should move on to we have more things on the agenda. So thank you both for coming. So
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, John. This was very
Close.
informative. And we'll hopefully get more information so we can vote on this next meeting.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right. So next on the agenda is item 9, the Senior and Community Center update. So I believe we have some people. If you could come up to the microphones, please. And if you could just introduce yourselves.
Sure. We'll start over here and then go down the line. I'm
And
Phil.
yeah, and remember, speak up. I think even with the microphones, we all have to remember to speak up. I say that
How's that?
as a soft-spoken person.
I understand that one as well. Phil Sipley, 7 Nelson Court, on the COA and also part of the building committee for the new senior center.
I'm Peg Noguera. I'm from the COA, and I'm also on the building committee.
Amy Wilson-Kent, Senior Services Director.
Great. All right, so can you give us an update on the project?
Yes, that's what our plans are for tonight. To give you we said we wanted to come back periodically. We have engaged the architect to look at other cost initiatives to reduce the size of the building. And we're looking also at the use of the building again. And our new number we're looking at is about 11.8 for a 9,000 plus square foot building. Estimated cost. We will have final numbers by the 3rd of September. And at that time, we've also talked with Jeremy to come up with some impact analysis by that time frame.
On the taxes.
Yeah, on the taxes. During that time, we're looking at defining the use of each location and the impact of what we won't be able to do. So that's kind of where we're at. We're in the process of doing, I'd say, halfway through the redesign.
Thank you. And just to remind everybody, we did vote to have this question on our November election ballot. So this will be coming to the voters again.
Yes.
The ballot language does not specify an amount that people will be voting on. That amount will be voted on at our special town meeting, the date of which we will be deciding tonight. So this question is going to come back to the voters, and just, another reminder, the question passed at the annual town meeting in May by the 2/3 majority. but it failed at the ballot in May by 52 votes. And so a lot of, there's still a need for a bigger space, but a lot of people spoke out that the cost seemed too high. So we're doing our best to bring down the cost. But I know you as a, you've spent a lot of time talking with the architect, and Amy, I know you also gave a lot of input about what is really needed in the new space. And so the new proposal, I think, still meets many of the needs. Can you talk about sort of some of the changes, proposed changes from the old design to the new design?
I think essentially what we've done is taken the building and according it a little smaller. We squished it in, is the best way to describe it. Removing some of the community center space down below, putting some of the senior activities rooms down below, but still having a level of community space available for the town. We have the necessary infrastructure to go up and down. We haven't changed the minimum requirements for the elevators and all the other HA, but we have basically reduced the square footage to the under 10,000 square feet.
So same functionality, less material.
Same functionality, reduced amount of functionality overall, but the same, but usable for the needs of this community center.
Right.
And some flexibility for the use of the committee, for their community.
And also, we were surprised to hear last night, at least I'll speak for myself, I was surprised. I thought in reducing the size of the building, I was thinking it would still cost the same per square footage, but I was wrong. That it increased from a 400 figure to like $525. Because believe me, and I say this to the taxpayers of the town, we have been doing our due diligence to do our best to try to make the price lower for everybody. But in making the building smaller, we found out it was more expensive to build it. So that's why we're not showing, even though we've lost a part of the building, we're not showing the reduction that we had hoped for.
Yeah, I think.
Amy and I are working on, we're going to work starting tomorrow, on that overlay of each of the rooms, what's going to be used there. And we'll have that for you too, as soon as we get that finished.
I think to Peg's point, it's the infrastructure, the heating, air conditioning, all the utilities that go into the building. Even as you make it smaller, you still have the cost of essentially the same infrastructure.
And I would say, right, the kitchen, the bathrooms, the elevator, I mean, all of these things, right, a smaller building still needs those, more expensive fixtures. So I think where the space is reduced, it's more, I think in meeting and office space is somewhat smaller. And I think also the food pantry area is also a bit smaller. Still bigger than what exists now, but not with as much storage, from what I understand.
Yes. We took the linear shelf space that's provided today, where we restock our food, and we've added just a small portion increase to that. So that's the measurement for the new food pantry. We've eliminated most of the food pantry storage. There is some concern about storage. There's concern about the fact that this new proposal does not also have the garage.
Right.
So there are additional projects and things that we can look at in the future or do supplementary fundraising or other activities for.
Right.
But we're looking for a functional building that meets the needs of the senior center, provides community services, and we try to reduce it from the $13.2 million.
And, I also want to mention that we had put in a request for a congressional earmark with Congressman Auchincloss, and that request, we had requested the full amount, which I think never happens, but it has made it through another stage, and I believe, was it 850,000. So it has not gone all the way through congressional approval, but we're in a good position to potentially have that federal funding, which then would be towards this project, and potentially we would decide later whether it would allow us to, say, build the garage, or whether it would allow us to reduce the overall debt for the project.
I would hope if if we're successful in our grants or other funding means that we could reduce debt, but also add some of the things that would be the priority project list, like the garage.
Right. And
Okay.
so we'll be continuing to explore as many other funding opportunities as we can. I think there may be other grants available, and perhaps Jeremy can help us investigate that. But many of the grants, you have to have a project
In this case.
Has to be
before
approved, an approved
before we
project.
can before we can get the grant. So as we talked about with the, with the culvert, it's a state, you can't just ask for the grant. You have to put the investment in.
Yes.
You have to put the work in and show that you have a viable project, and then potentially we can find more funding to offset some of the taxpayer burden.
Yeah, there was additional funds, I think, in the Murray and Fatman in the state level. They were trying to get some funding. I'm not sure the status of that.
I don't know either.
But I would ask.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out. So, so are there any other questions or updates?
The only other thing I'd like to add is I'd like to have set up dates for a town information meetings in September and October, once we get the information together, so that we can have open forums for the community, as well as I invite the select board, FinCom, and anyone else to join in participation in our discussion. I would suspect it'd be the end of October, and somewhere in timing with the town meeting, whenever that may be, and sometime in September.
Okay, well, yes, we will definitely want to have information sessions, but yes, once we know the date of the special town meeting, which, stay tuned.
We're going to wait.
Yes.
We'll be ready when you are.
Okay. And yes, we definitely, will help get the word out through these meetings, and also, I guess, support your efforts in getting out the word in other ways. So we'll be seeing you again here soon.
Welcome.
We look forward to that update once the architect has more details, and once we have more information about the taxpayer impact.
I would suspect that after the 3rd of the month, your next meeting after that, I'd say you should plan to schedule us in.
Okay.
If, this way we'd have information from Jeremy on financing, we'd have the architectural designs,
Right.
and even before that, I'd like to think about when that first meeting for information would be.
So I think that's September
September
18th.
4th.
You think we might have it ready for September 4th? I'd be happy to have it soon. I mean,
So yeah, if I can opt out on the financial piece, so I've met with our financial advisors, and they're the folks who take our debt into the debt capital markets and help us issue bonds. That's their core function. We're working off of a 4% assumed interest rate right now, which is higher than the presumed interest rate that we had in the spring. So even as we reduce the par amount, the total amount that we're looking to borrow, there's other levers that get leaned on, and interest rate being one of them. So should we go to market now, will be a little bit more expensive. And the other variables are on timing. When you issue, I'm not going to get into all of it, but when you issue short-term debt versus long-term debt, and how many interest payments you have in a particular fiscal year, they're really good at structuring that for whatever we want to optimize for. So if we want to optimize for lowest overall cost, we can. If we want to optimize for lowest cost in particular fiscal years, we can do that. So there's a ton of variables to talk through on this. I think what we're going to aim for is to use an apples-to-apples comparison, or use the same approach so we can have an apples-to-apples comparison from what the first taxpayer impact was presented as. So generally, if we have an issue that is 80% an issue that's 80% the size as before, generally the taxpayer impact is going to be 80% the size, but it's not going to be one-to-one. So I just want people to be aware of that things are more expensive than they were a couple months ago to borrow money.
And from a timing perspective, as we discussed in the committee meeting, for the OPM and then the design and release, if we approve this project in November through the various elections and town meetings, fall, we would probably be looking at breaking ground next fall for the center. So from a timing standpoint, for borrowing, and because you don't need to borrow the whole, as you've just, yeah.
So it matters how much cash is out the door on June 30th. So if we have an OPM on board, but not yet a designer, or a designer who's only submitted 1 or 2 bills by June 30th, we can only have to borrow a small amount of cash that would hit as an interest payment in fiscal 26. that's a little bit too in the weeds, but it matters when the debt service payments hit the outside the levy assessment.
As we get more definition of the project, we can work closely with Jeremy to tie that debt acquisition to maximize what year and what timing.
I mean, isn't September a good month to be waiting for debt to be a little cheaper,
Well, we're
potentially?
next September.
This,
Oh, well, we don't
Interest rate cut?
we don't have an authorization, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Pass it.
I'm just saying when you go out to get the estimates, what are they basing their information on?
Oh, yeah, what current AA plus credits are
Right.
pulling in the market. So yeah, if we have an FOMC rate cut in September, then perhaps that changes the math a little bit, but
I think as we market,
yeah, we're looking at a quarter point, and we're using
It's a quarter point on $10 million.
but when we eventually issue the debt, which short-term will be possibly be in spring of calendar year 25, again, short-term debt probably in spring of calendar year 26 or late calendar year 25, and then long-term debt in later in calendar year 26. The quarter point rate in
amount of time.
the quarter point rate in September 2024 is probably going to have an unperceptible change.
the crystal ball. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Oh,
I
yeah,
have a
Amy,
question
yes.
Related to September 8th, Senior Citizen Day. I'd like to
Yes.
find out at some point soon who will be coming to the
Yes.
select board here, and you're all invited to come and to have dinner
I
with
know,
us.
I would love to be there. I would, please sign me up,
Thank you.
save me the
Does
phone call.
anybody else know if they're going to be there, Mike?
Yes. This is at 11:30.
11:30,
Lions
yes.
Club, Lions Club is involved in this.
Right at the
right?
Unitarian
Yeah, Lions
Church.
Club is sponsoring the dinner, the event, which is catered by Olivas. So yeah, I need a head count for that. I've heard recently from Ann Mazar, she's got one grandchild and her husband and she that are going to be taking the fire engine from, the fire station at about 11:15. So if you want to see them get out of that, then you can be out front. But yeah, it should be, I think she's a little nervous. She's, doesn't want a head table.
I'm sure she's
That sounds
thrilled
like-
about being on
That
the fire
sounds like
engine.
fun.
Yeah. So yes, if you're hoping to attend, please, contact the center. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everybody.
so much. Great. So now, I think I have my computer. Okay. All right, so our next item is actually something new, which is, so item 10, we're going to talk about town land and recreation field action plan. So what we'd like to do is have a roundtable. So just a little preface to this, as part of, as the town was looking to fund the senior and community center and build the new building, it came up from a number of sources that there were other community wants and potentially needs, and so about what the land was being used for, and also the desire to have additional playing and athletic fields, so playing and practice fields. And so a number of us heard from various members of the community, and we want to follow up on that because it's a process, and it's a process that affects multiple boards and committees. And so we wanted to get the ball rolling by inviting some of the stakeholders for this project to join us for a roundtable discussion so that we could move towards an action plan to actually potentially get some projects underway. I know my experience just in town government and watching other projects is the way to get projects going is to have a dedicated group of people focused on a project. So we've seen that with various building projects. So for the police station, for the library, for the senior and community center. And so there has been this demand for additional fields. So maybe we can move towards something like that. So I guess I wanted to invite, we've invited a number of members of boards and committees join us. And so I believe we have some people here from the Parks Commission. I don't know if you'd actually, like, Dan and John, if you'd actually, we're going to do this like a round table, so it's more of a rectangle, but the same idea. Oh, and I was supposed to text.
Hey, Brendan, your hand was raised. Did you,
If there's people who are.
was that just raised?
Yeah, no, it was Ray. I wanted to say something before we discuss, moved on. I was one of the ones that kept running into that refrain over and over again when I was talking about the senior center, like, oh, why not fields? I just want to make it very clear that it's not a us versus them or a choose this or choose that. I mean, there's mechanisms to do both. We just have to, get the process started. And I just wanted to say that before we moved on.
Thank you. And I wanted to pass the virtual mic to Mike Goddard, so who had a few other things that he wanted to say. And so we'll so go ahead, Mike.
So, I mean, Elaine is absolutely correct. Through the senior community center project, we got feedback on recreational fields, but that's not the only place we started to hear things more broadly about land use, right? So there've been projects that have gone forward and for discussion and funding where questions have been thrown back saying, well, what's that land being used for? Just that or other things? So the other thought that we've sort of been kicking around is there's a broader opportunity where you've got housing production plans, you've got the master plan, you've got open space and recreation plan, and there are tangential, synergies here across these different plans and recommendations that require land. And a lot of them may be looking to use the same land. So the thought was, as we do this, recreational fields is absolutely an action we expect to come forward. But we also see opportunities for economic development, commercial development in the proper zones. So there's a lot of opportunity to kind of rationalize what are we doing with town-owned parcels? Can we actually go from saying this parcel we just purchased can be used for these three things to saying that parcel we just purchased is going to be used for this thing. So we take some of the mystery out of what land is going to be used for, be more specific, funnel that through the capital planning program so that we can start to understand when things can happen, how we can fund them, things of that nature. So to the point made on the senior community center or recreational fields, they're not in competition with each other per se, because one is at a different stage in a project planning perspective. We're looking for funding for the senior community center. Recreational fields is in infancy. We need to start the process to understand where can we, put a field, multiple fields, a complex, if that's what we want to do. So the idea is, how do we, we're suggesting that there's probably an opportunity here to take representation from the various stakeholder committees and boards to come together and become more of a steering committee to kind of rationalize our land use strategy, so we can start to see some action taken, whether it's around recreational fields, whether it's opportunities to drive, further use of the Taft property. If we put a senior center there, we know the corner, North Ave and 16, there's some work going on the planning board there. Yeah. Well, we got the lower half. What are we going to do with that? Let's make a decision, a recommendation to the taxpayers, so we see a holistic view of what's going to happen with that property. What's going to happen with, say, Inman Hill? What could happen with the Trask property when and if that becomes available to the town? But that's the idea, is to kind of get some focus on it so that collectively, it's not a select board decision, it's not a parks decision, but collectively the town committees come together and say, we think this is a rational plan that makes sense, we can present. So when we're asked a question about what's going on here, no, we don't need fields at Taft, because we think fields are going to be better at Trask. And we collectively agreed that that's where the direction we want to take. So this is literally a starting point to generate those projects, and things like fields is probably going to be fast track, because to Lena's point, we're hearing a lot of, Bill, you and I, we've walked properties 10 years ago looking for recreational fields.
Trying to get it done then.
Yeah,
It's still
so
ongoing.
hopefully this is just a kickstart process from a town perspective to get everybody on board. And so we're all, talking from the same plan.
And just before we get going, I believe Ann Mazar is online. So Ann is Chair of Land Use Committee and Community Preservation Committee. And then we also, so we have Bill Ambrosino, who's Chair of Planning Board. And we've got Dan Byer, who's on Parks Commission, and John Dudley, also on Parks Commission.
I do just want to, for the sake of everything, so we did post a Parks meeting tonight.
Oh, great.
That way,
So do you
because
wanna-
myself and John
okay.
do represent a
Okay.
quorum of the
Yes.
commission.
Okay.
Just so we're covered for open meeting law.
Yes. So do you want to call your
So,
meeting
yeah,
to
we'll
order?
call our meeting to order, and we are recording this meeting. We will just use your recording, but
Okay.
just that way there's no potential issue since we're both here
Okay. So the
deliberating on
the
this
two of
topic.
you are the quorum.
Correct,
there
there's
are
a
no-
three-member board.
There are no
AJ
members.
AJ
on-
couldn't be here
okay,
tonight.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. So
Round table.
I guess there is no specific order, but I guess, you know, Jason, do you want to weigh in?
Oh.
Oh.
Where would you like to start the roundtable? Just in general conceptual form?
I think,
Like,
yeah,
I think Mike's 100% correct. If we don't start naming things, it
Right.
will be very difficult to go out and do them.
Right.
Um,
So Mike
there's two
floated
things
the
that-
idea of like a steering committee.
Yeah, steering committee. I agree that an actual declared committee does seem to be much more provincial than a working group, but they do both work.
Right.
I think somebody needs to come up with a charter of what's going to happen in said
Right.
committee.
And that, I mean, that would be potentially something that could come out of this meeting. But Mike M., do you have,
I guess my question would be, I believe the master plan addressed this issue,
Talks about it, yeah.
and it seems to make an awful lot of sense to bring some people that want to use the fields.
yes,
along.
yes.
So
So, right, the master plan, that, there were surveys done as part of the master plan, and this was a request from a lot of the
This was,
respondents.
it was overwhelming,
Okay,
the support for additional fields. We've known for a long time that Mendon is well understaffed for fielding. You know, we're sharing fields, we're just, you know, thankfully the soccer fields up on 140 have come available to us. That was a big plus. But Mendon is nowhere near, now that Mendon's grown, near the capacity of fields that it needs to service our youths. And I think it's important.
So Billy, but does the master plan actually have any definition of exactly how many fields, what kind of fields, what the size?
No, I don't think it didn't go that deep. It's just the, you know, the questions that were asked were, you know, obviously, you know, do you support additional athletic fields in the community? And
And then the other question would be
was
with
overwhelming.
probably Ann Mazar with the land use committee, because you talk about which fields would be placed where. The question is actually, what's the potential? I mean, in other words, we're looking at Inman Hill, we're looking at potentially Trask.
And there's potentially a certain
Where
amount
could
of,
we put fields and what kind of fields?
So I think, so you bring up a good point. So if you were to do an effort around recreational fields specifically, you're going to bring in school, you're going to bring in all the youth sports to participate. Just as, I mean, Elena and I and Dan, we all actually attended a meeting at the school about a separate project to develop turf fields at the high school.
Yeah.
Right? And all the youth teams were there. We made the point that that's actually a subset of what we're talking about.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And even the youth sports basically said, it's a great, do it, but that doesn't address their needs for practice space, things like that. So this is absolutely, I think when I say steering committee, I think there is a cross-committee group
right.
of appointed people that will coordinate and probably generate subcommittees. So you might have a recreational field.
But I'm thinking.
and there's a revenue component to it also.
Oh, right, sure, but as I'm thinking out loud, at the very start of this, you know, we own a lot more land now than we did
Yep.
a few years ago. The question I have is, the land that could be used, potentially used for fields, which ones are they and what could we potentially do with it? Because
That's the rationalization, right? If you look at
Yeah.
the open space, the land use matrix Ann sent to me that I shared,
Right.
I mean, that basically lists privately owned, town-owned, and Ann can speak to it better if she wants to jump in, but it also has potential uses. We also understand how is that land acquired? Because that could limit
right.
what it's used
Well,
for.
but that does
Right.
come into it. What can we use?
So there's a lot of discussion and high level, I mean, this is like analysis this is not heavy duty analysis, this is just clarifying, but getting a perspective coming back to this collective to say, we think this makes sense, that we go in this direction here. Ultimately, as you know, we do anything, it's going to come back to the town to vote on, right?
But to me, the best thing is if that document exists of what, what lands we own and, what the inventory is, or what the potential use is, if it isn't already, it should be up on the town website and everybody should know about it. So
Yeah.
all of these stakeholders
I think there
can
might
look
be a
at it and
version of it.
say, and get an idea of what we can do.
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, it's in, I think the,
Open space and
Open space and
recreation.
rec plan.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, Bill.
And the other thing you have to look at is not all the properties we own, and I went through this 10 years ago. Not all the properties we own are conducive to the construction it would take, it'd be
Right.
extremely costly.
Right.
That's one of the biggest issues with the corner property is that, the grade there makes it extremely difficult to just plop a soccer field or anything else in there, there'd be a lot of grading to it. It'd be an expensive endeavor. I know the corner of Hopedale Street is unavailable. The gentleman who owned it, I'm mentioning names, but the gentleman who owned it refused to allow active recreation on it. So that's a piece of property that we can't use for that. So, each individual property is going to have to be looked at, for all these features. But I think it's a step. I certainly, and Mike knows this, I've been a proponent for this forever, and got nowhere with it in the past. So hopefully this comes to fruition.
And I think to Mike Maroli's point, there is a lot of information out there.
Yes.
There are recommendations out there. It is at a 50,000 foot level. In my mind, what we're trying to do here is taking it down to make it actionable.
Make it actionable.
Right. So Dan, I wanted to give Parks a chance to talk, because I know you've
Yeah.
also given a lot of thought
I mean-
to this question.
I think, everything you, Mike just said about, makes perfect sense, that, it has to be collaborative, Parks can't do it on our own. The idea that you get some people from all these different groups and pull all this together, because and figure out what are our options. I think that's what's kind of overwhelming. We could say, oh, we need this, we need that, but where does it go? What makes the most sense? And then to the other Mike's point, I'm not sure we have a great handle on what exactly we need. I think we all have different ideas of things that we might want, but to sit down with every one of these groups and find out, what field space are you using, what is lacking. I think that's part of what needs to come out of this, to understand. So we say, okay, we need to build a soccer field, a basketball court, whatever. Because I don't know if these plans dove that deep. We just kind of said,
We need.
new fields, renovated,
Right,
yeah.
and that's,
they were much more
what
broad.
I've read and say that, the open space and recreation plan, it does specify more and improved fields, but that's very high
Yeah,
level,
but,
so.
Can I ask, can either Bill or can you speculate why we didn't go further? Like, was it just?
It was cost. It was cost. I mean, these fields are costly when you do them. Whether we decide to do just a grass field, or what I was trying to do at the time was obviously an artificial field. Longer use, the upcharge to the groups that use them, because it does become a revenue source. It's a long-term revenue source for the town. So obviously the ability to use artificial fields is much greater than grass. When the rains come, the artificial field drains quickly, where you might have to shut a field down for a week or two because of heavy rain. So there's a lot of things to consider.
one of the things I wanted to talk about was how large the athletic youth organizations, the amount of families that are involved in that. They are probably the largest component of group in the town of Mendon. They don't get active in town government for whatever reason, but these groups, I think you gain a lot of support from the community. Because, I mean, each one of these organizations usually, 300, 400, 500 kids in them. I mean, certainly Mike can speak to soccer. I mean, soccer is a very large group of the youth in town. And so I think it's an obligation the town needs to look at to support such a large group in the town.
And I think, I think it's our hope that we would engage them, get their input, and maybe get some of the people involved to help us.
Absolutely.
With the
I don't think
steering
to be honest with you, I mean, I was part of that group for a long time. My kids going through it and stuff. And I've been coaching in this town for 30 years, youth programs and stuff. So I can, if you involve them, they will be there. I mean, there's no question.
I think the other opportunity from a overall town perspective is the more we can engage people to make sure people understand that their perspective is being addressed, it's not being overlooked, you're more likely to see movement across other town initiatives, because the town needs more than fields, it needs more than a senior community center, it needs economic development. We might,
correct.
Zoning, would we get more support for rezoning areas that people would say, I'm okay with that because I know my focus is being addressed over here. So I think the more we can kind of have a cohesive strategy around across all those needs, people are less likely to say, I'm not going to vote for that because I don't see mine.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, and I can speak from experience because before I got involved in town government, I was very heavy into the athletic community and really never paid attention to town government until I finally got involved. And I think that's where a lot of these people sit, that, they're in their own little world. And I think it'd be great to bring these people in and to get more involved in town government. And I think if they felt that their needs would be in place, that they would do that.
How do we accommodate town government at the same time as accommodating the community? Because one of the big things that I'm thinking about is that we can hardly keep up with our current set of fields, right? So if Dan's fields triple, and he can't keep up with the current set, that means we have to grow our staff, which means we have to grow our departments.
That's a tomorrow problem.
Well, but these are questions I think that would.
Good point, Mike.
That our
charge
potential
field use
steering
now.
group or steering committee or working group could ask these questions and do some of that research. And Dan, I feel like you had your hand.
I'm glad you said it first. I would be remiss in my role as a parks commissioner. We can build all the fields we want. We're struggling to maintain our current fields. So there absolutely needs to be an investment in the ongoing staffing to maintain those facilities once we build them.
With any
Which
capital
I think we
effort,
know, but.
Any capital effort of that size requires some commensurate operational, funding, no question. But I also think that this is a potentially revenue. I mean, you look at your cyclical accounts now. There is a lack of fields at adult leagues, youth leagues. People are paying through the nose to rent space, and people are getting bumped because somebody's willing to pay more. So there is an opportunity here.
My son is playing flag football. We go to Northborough, artificial fields, beautiful facility, but I can guarantee you we're paying a lot of money to use that facility.
Milford's turned the revenue center into the use of their newer fields, like the high school field. Cost you an arm and a leg. I think it's like $150 an hour to rent the field.
We just need to, right now, we have a lot of agreements that we actually credit field use fees and waiver for capital work done, which has worked well for us. But youth baseball and youth softball, they line the fields, they set the base paths, they maintain the infields. So if we're going to charge for those facilities, we have to be able to take on that work to justify the cost of somebody spending the money to book our fields.
And not to be, I appreciate the point
for sure
you're both making, but I still think that's a tomorrow question in terms of if we were to move forward with any recreational field project,
Right.
the operational cost of support would have to be embedded before we actually do anything, right?
I'm just bringing it up as a way to reference representation in that committee and possible
Yes.
output.
Yes.
Like, as a recommendation, I believe they need to come with both, like, structural, organizational recommendations, as well as, like, what's our phased approach look like? How does compensation, probably couldn't do 10 fields at once, right? It's probably gonna have to ramp up. All that needs the proper skill set represented in the community, in that committee, so that we can get the right feedback back. And that's
Yeah.
all I'm bringing up.
I will say, just like in my knowledge, we don't need 10 fields, but,
Is there like a planning template?
we haven't gotten that
You
far.
know what? To be honest with you,
Like,
I
this
did a whole
community
plan.
size
what
gets
I
this
see as-
saturation.
I did a whole plan 10 years ago. I don't know if I can still dig it up or not, but it laid out the fields, multi-use fields. You can do, soccer and some of these other sports all in the same field. And let me tell you what, not only will you rent to our community, but you will rent to the surrounding communities. Him saying he goes to Northborough, right? You're
That's a
gonna,
multi-use
there'll
facility.
be other towns, if we've got top facilities. I mean, they're being built all over the state. For business, I travel all over the place. These type of recreational facilities being built everywhere.
So you know what I love about this discussion? We're jumping to solution, which means I think there's a lot of energy around, this seems like something we should at least take the first step on
Yeah.
maybe form a committee.
I agree, although I guess I wanted to ask Ann Mazar, because I think nobody has, we've talked about like funding, and we
Yeah,
have
CPA.
CPA money that potentially could be used for some of these projects. So I guess, Ann, can you weigh in a little bit about your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, CPA funds can definitely be used. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. CPA funds can definitely be used for recreational fields, but it just sort of depends on the land and exactly what the use is. Couldn't be used for salaries or maintenance or that type of thing, but for constructing fields, not a turf field, it could do the excavation, but, purchasing land for fields, that could be CPA funds. So CPA funds are definitely a potential for funding.
I think grant money is available for this stuff now too. Infrastructure.
Can the CPA funds be used to do a study on the land
Yes.
for recreation?
Yeah, Ann, did you hear that question? The question was, can CPA funds be used to do a study about the land and potential field projects?
Yeah. Yes.
And what would be the process for that? I mean, I know there are like operational, I think you have, a small budget, and then, but I don't know how much, I don't know how much money it would cost. And can you talk about the process of using CPA funds a little bit?
Well, if it was for like evaluating a property or a project and doing engineering or surveying or whatever, the Community Preservation Committee could use administrative funds to do that, and that doesn't have to go to town meeting. So that's a possibility. But if it's if it's money being used for a project, that has to go to town meeting. But the analysis, we can, administrative funds can be used.
And is there any kind of a list of the land inventory, is there any kind of a breakdown of, what the potential uses of those lands are as fields?
I can't really hear the question.
You gotta
Yes.
face that.
And is in the inventory list of all of the currently owned lands in town contain potential uses, or has any research been done into that, of what kind of potential fields could be put for, active recreation in any of those fields, any of those lands?
Yeah, and the open space and recreation plan, which is posted, there's the land matrix. And on there, there's a very high level analysis that Dan went through the properties and said, where possibly fields could be used on the property. And that's online.
I do think it's we will likely need the assistance of some sort of firm
Sure.
to help us, because you can just look at it and say, oh, a field could go there, but there's dimensional requirements, there's elevation issues, like what you were referencing.
Is that, and
It's a lot of work.
There's companies out there that.
right,
that
but
do
piggybacking
super
onto what Dan is saying, he's put together this high-level list. Are you saying that because it's an administrative function, that we could get a quote and actually have someone take that list and kind of drill down a little bit and give us a better idea of an inventory and what the real uses are possible of what we already own and where they are?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like if you're analyzing something for potentially using CPA funds for a project, you can use administrative funds to do that, like for the disc golf, we had somebody look at the different properties, to see what the potential was. So, yes.
So Dan, could you and maybe Jeremy or
I mean,
John?
Just to maybe circle back to your earlier point though, too, I think it would, before we get to that, we need a group of people to figure out what do we need. We should talk to all these different groups and truly, because we can go to a firm and say, what can we build? But if we go to them and say, we need this number of fields, a soccer field, a baseball field, then they can do a much better analysis and say, this property will fit that, this won't.
I also don't want to lose sight of, this is more than just recreational fields, right?
True.
But I think, to your point, I'm not going to, we're going to absolutely do this recreational field thing, right? So if we skip step one and we go to the subcommittee, for lack of a better term, we can use CPA funds to do engineering. We need to do requirements gathering, as you would with any other project, to see what the need is, right? And absolutely. Now, do we do every parcel, Mike? Not sure. If the need is a complex made up of 3 multi-use fields that could be support lacrosse and soccer, that's a very specific thing that would probably eliminate most of the properties you have, and you're left with 2. You could go then and do the analysis. Similar to disc golf. They didn't look at every property. There was 3 thought to be possibilities. Go look at those 3. But I think we need a formal committee type structure to kind of start to cull this down to actionable work to be done.
Right.
But I think we have a lot of opportunity, funding available for some respects, and once again, putting something in place. It would be good at a town meeting to demonstrate to our our constituents, our taxpayers, this is all, we buy land a lot. What are we doing with the land? Well, we can start to demonstrate what the plan is for use of the land and where the benefits are, right?
I think that's really the exact conversation I've had with Ann before. We should be able to bring something forward of, a potential project or, a study.
And have it tied together, right?
Yeah.
So you don't get the question of, why are you doing disc golf on that property? What's the plan for that property? Well, the plan is disc golf plus affordable housing plus this.
Right,
and
we
it's
have
all
that,
put together.
That document. Right? And I think, sorry to answer your other question, Mike, I think what's in this document right now is very, very high level. It just says active recreation, passive recreation. So I do think there's a lot of room to really dive into this further. Yep. Unfortunately, this is an overwhelming amount of work. We had to have it done to get grants.
Sure.
There's probably a ton more that could have been done.
Well, I guess
now hopefully this group can do.
I guess my question is, if there's somebody out there that can talk about what type of fields you could do in this property, they must be able to do with demographics, look at the size of the town, how many youth there are, and what typically what types of sports that they play, and how many fields they would predict that a town of 6,500 people.
Yeah.
If you were to engage the youth sport leagues in these towns, we can definitely see historically what it was, what it's grown to, the new field sports that have been added. I mean, lacrosse wasn't a thing when I was involved with youth soccer. Football wasn't a thing until then. Football took all the fields. That's my own thing.
And
that's a joke.
Maybe
you're here for the fields.
That's another opportunity too. Is maybe there's discussion with Upton with some time of regionalization.
Right.
Upton's in need of fields too. They're very limited there. They tried a large project, and I'll tell you, this is what you need to be careful when you go down this road. Is this thing falls flat later, you're going to lose all those people that worked on the committee and all the people involved. That's what happened in Upton. They just disappeared from town government. They said, enough with this. We're just,
Yeah,
we knew it wasn't gonna happen and
So
it
there-
did.
there are
Cautionary
synergies,
tale.
right?
Your cautionary tale.
Make sure it
Most
doesn't.
of our youth sports are shared. It's Mendon up.
Yeah, they're regional. I'm glad you
So,
said that.
and it ties back to high school. There's
I think it's a great opportunity.
So
I think it's a
the
great.
national, the NRPA, the National Recreation and Parks Association, do you know this? All right, so they recommend 1.5 recreation fields per 1,000 people in a town. So for our town, that's 10 recreation fields. How
That's a
many-
little extreme. I don't think
Yeah,
we
I'm
need
just- how many fields do we have now?
If you're counting individual fields, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pazella Field, Pazella Baseball Field, Grant Baseball Field, Tetra Baseball Field, Lowell Softball Field, Wagner T-Ball Field, Grady T-Ball Field, Grover Soccer Field, Clough Field. Those are just parks fields.
Those are, a few of those are
Basketball
school,
court.
a few of those
I haven't
are,
touched the schools yet.
So just to bring it back, because we're running out of time, do
But
we
yeah.
think this makes sense to take the next step and say, let's appoint a committee?
Oh, I think, absolutely. I think there's a ton of
'Cause I think-
research that needs to be
right,
done.
I feel like a lot of
as
the
we're
questions that have
touching on
been
it.
brought up would be good ones for a
Right.
committee to run with.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing the work for them.
Yes,
Come
right,
on.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think I'm hearing a lot of agreement that we want to do a committee, and I guess the question is, procedural, like, how big do we want it to be? What kind of representation do we want? Do we want to have, formal charter? When do we, we don't know that we necessarily are ready to form it tonight, but I don't know, but I think
Can we-
maybe we could within the next couple of meetings.
We post something on the town page to ask people who are interested in being on a committee to research and designate town-owned fields. Could send an email with some interest.
I'd like to see a representative from every youth sport league. to be
yeah,
honest.
that's what I was gonna suggest.
Back it up for a second. The reason I said steering committee is sports field is one tangent off of
Right.
this
Right.
thing. So I would recommend,
What do you want to call it, though? What do you want to call all of this?
I'm gonna call it the thing, because I don't know. But this thing,
I don't
should
think-
be comprised of existing town boards and committee members that have a stakeholder. So,
Right.
Yeah.
obviously land use, planning, master plan, parks, select board. We definitely have a stake in this too, in terms of the execution arm of it, things like that. But then, to your point, Mike, what if these people get together, they look at it and say, you know what, if we repurposed all the baseball, softball, and t-ball fields to be multi-purpose, do we need more fields? I don't know. Right? What's the scheduling look like? I don't know. So before we start to say, let's create new fields, I think there's a level of.
That's why I asked about the current inventory.
Right.
Right. So I think this steering committee
Sure.
the thing would take this information and then set direction.
Right.
And I think recreation's going to be a quick off-ramp to get going, is my sense. But I also think there's other opportunities. There's no question, I want to understand what we're going to do with Taft.
Right.
Yeah. The lower half.
I think potentially for any property where there could be
Sure.
athletic fields, we also have to consider, is there a better use for
Right.
that? That the town would benefit more. And so I think, somebody needs to ask those questions, to get that
Can I ask it,
overview. Yeah.
So what is the role of the land use committee? Because it kind of seems like some of what you're describing might fall within their purview, some of these higher level.
I've had that question
Not to
as
give them
well.
more work,
So,
but-
Ann, do you want to
Ann's
weigh
kicking you
in
under the
about,
table.
like what the land use committee does? So the land use committee is actually in our general bylaws, and it has a couple of specific purposes, but I know, Ann, can you talk a little bit about what role you see for land use committee in this process?
Well, the land use committee bylaw is a little bit outdated because written before we had a master plan, the community preservation funds and whatnot. But, basically it's just trying to use the land that we own for the, best use.
Right.
So-
Potentially a lot of this is like in the domain of land use, but I guess it sounds like more boards and committees maybe want to get involved as well, because I know like land use has addressed questions of, you know, new land acquisitions, as well as the open space.
Do you mind if I read the description for land use committee?
You're welcome to, although I believe, yes, Anne says that she considers
It's
it.
a very explicit definition that's
Yes.
not as wide scoped as what was just said. So it says the purpose of the land use committee is to protect and acquire sufficient land for the common interest and welfare of its citizens. And this responsibility includes protection of environmentally sensitive land, protection of historic sites, provision of land for future anticipated community needs such as school and recreation, assurance of affordable housing availability, preservation of selected parcels of open space, and the fulfillment of these responsibilities requires the acquisition of land in a variety of forms, location, and degree of ownership. So they are not about the direct use of the land, just the first initial part. So it needs to be very clear when the thing gets created that it does not overlap.
Not with that definition.
No, it's almost like it's a handoff to some extent.
Right.
It's right, and right, we have a lot of these plans, sort of these big picture plans, but I guess what we're hoping for, implementation strategies, perhaps timelines. So, and having a group that is focused on those specific questions, I think can get us in that direction.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess, so potentially, I think it would be good to identify like how many boards and committees we want represented. I know we did invite Conservation Commission to come also. Potentially, they will want to weigh in for the evaluation of any town-owned properties, because a playing field is going to be have a pretty large impact on
It's going to have a big
properties.
footprint.
What's that?
It's going to have a big footprint.
It
so.
will have a big footprint, especially when you take parking into consideration. But they may not want to be involved at this early stage. They may want to be involved sort of once we identify, I don't know, potentially key properties. What's that?
Anne has her.
Oh, Anne, you had a question?
Yeah, well, not a question. I just want to make a comment from what Jason was reading about the Land Use Committee. So much of that overlaps with the Community Preservation Committee of what he read, and so it's just kind of like it's just not that distinct. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that the Community Preservation Committee, when projects are brought forward to us, then we vote on them. And Dan's brought a lot of projects like the tennis courts, the disc golf came up, but fields have never been brought to us specifically, except for a long, long time ago, we did the baseball field. And so a committee like this would be very helpful to find out what the town needs, and then something could be brought to the Community Preservation Committee.
That's interesting. Baseball was created.
Yeah,
I think the thing might be a short-lived committee. This is almost to kickstart the process, and then it probably goes back to other standing boards and committees to carry the torch forward. But I still think to kind of get some focus on it, just to get it moving, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's an overwhelming amount of information to collect and understand what are our needs, and so I think it seems to have been very successful with some of these other projects.
I mean,
it would be
the projects that I've seen done. Usually, there's a lot of energy in that group of people.
The senior project.
So,
We
but
support this project.
yeah, so and so.
Grandkids share the big fields.
And so I think it's right. We will probably want to get, I think, at least one representative from the boards and committees that are stakeholders, and then perhaps that committee could decide how to bring in the other community groups, like once there's a formal committee formed, whether you want to have. So I mean, the model of the land use committee, for example, it has representatives from Planning, Conservation Commission, and Select Board. It also, I don't officially CPC is not on the committee, but just Anne happens to be chair of both. But I mean, we could have a model like that where like we are looking for someone from Planning, someone from Parks, someone from CPA or CPC, someone from Select Board. What do we think? How big?
I agree.
Because it strikes, well, the other thing is, size, the size could be determined by what the representation is that we want to have from the boards.
My suggestion would be that you build not a large, some of these committees get too large. And
Yes.
then nothing gets done.
Right.
And that's one thing I've learned along the way, I started with 15 or 18 people on the master plan committee. By the time I was done, I was down to 7.
Right.
There's just so much infighting going on. So what I would suggest is you keep it under 10, and if they need a subcommittee to assist them,
Right.
they can appoint a subcommittee to handle a
And they can
specific.
recruit volunteers as well that would not be official appointees.
Absolutely.
So,
I was thinking 5 or 7.
yeah, I was thinking maybe 7.
I go 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good number.
Can I suggest that
Yeah.
we put
7.
something on the website and ask people to, or would you
For
rather
the
do
thing.
it from the current existing boards and committees?
Well, for the thing, I think it's boards and committees, but I think there's going to be plenty of, to your point, opportunity and need to recruit, as we've even seen in the senior
Right.
center
For a
side.
specific
Like,
project.
like recreational fields will be a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that does not go forward. And I think to your point, there'll be a need to pull in all the youth sports teams and then volunteers that have an interest, right?
I'm just trying to wrap up the discussion now.
Well, I'd say let's, so we agree on forming a 7-person thing committee to kick this thing, and we'll think of a better name.
So, I think
All right.
we can potentially bring this back to the next meeting to officially form it then, be in touch, see who from these boards and committees is interested in joining, and then maybe officially, make appointments. And then it will most likely be since we'll be making appointments, it'll have to follow open meeting law, so, yes.
Just keep in mind, if you're asking boards to make recommendations, you may have to wait for those boards to post a meeting to appoint a member to.
I see.
If that's.
Okay,
just
well, so,
Take some time.
okay.
But I think the first step, now that we've gotten this far in the discussion, is to designate, which boards
Which
and committees
boards.
we want to
Right.
ask to have a member.
Right.
And then
And I think we potentially could have flexibility to start with a core group and then add more. And so if there are other boards and committees that feel like they need a voice in this. But so, I think, so we have parks, we have planning, we have select board, we have community, CPC. Land use somewhat overlaps with the other ones, but it's also very central. So potentially another land use member that is not from the other boards and committees.
I'd also say you don't want to turn away people. So if multiple members of the board, as long as they're not forming a quorum on their own, want to participate,
Right,
we
that's
should
true.
consider that.
Right. I think with parks, you've got 2 and that's a
We'll have
quorum,
to figure
so.
that out, or just post them.
Right,
Quorum, you
post-
guys can decide right now.
We could.
Yeah, so we can,
I got a
Actually,
culvert to fix.
Tom Bellin would be very interested, I think, in this too, maybe as a smaller way to stay involved. I know this was a passion of his.
yeah, I think, right, yeah, so, yeah,
He's retired, he's got nothing to do.
Yeah,
right, so potentially.
Actually-
more than he was when he was
Of course he is.
crazy busy.
Yeah, so I think we'll bring this back next meeting and, finalize sort of
Great.
the implementation of the committee. And then, as Jeremy points out, we'll have the board representation, and then maybe we can add in at least a couple of volunteers
Yeah, I was
from
gonna
the
suggest
community.
if you could have a few seats for the community, I think there
Right.
are some people we could maybe
Right.
loop in,
Right, so
like some of the
we
people in
can,
the audience tonight that I think are very passionate that
Just-
can help us.
Just want to make sure there's the bigger and then there's the sports.
Right.
So if they have a passion for one specific thing, there's room at the table.
Balance
Right.
that, yeah.
So, and I would even say, what I like, Bill, you did the zoning bylaw review committee. You
Yeah.
presented a charter for that.
Yeah.
I think something like that, I think somebody brought that up earlier, would make sense for the thing, which we'll rename, to say, what are the expected, scope and deliverables so they can kind of hit the ground running. So maybe we bring that back.
It's in my notes here to create a charter like the one Jason made for the general bylaws review
Didn't
committee.
have a catchy acronym, but that would be nice.
Okay, all right.
We'll get back to that in a sec. But I think if we just go from tonight and say, committee, go ahead based upon that discussion, it was both too wide ranging and too specific in
narrow,
other
yeah, yeah.
ways. So I think having an agreed upon written mandate for the committee would be super useful, specifically in this situation.
And we'll, so we'll vote on that next meeting and get the ball rolling. So, all right. So thank you all for joining us. I know this, I didn't see what time we started, but I'm pretty sure this was longer than the 20 minutes.
Oh, it was like
But,
10 minutes.
But I think this was a long time coming. So thank you all for joining us and sticking around. We have a few more things on the agenda that we should get to. So yes, thank you.
So we'll adjourn the Parks meeting. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? So we're covered. Yeah, I think we appreciate your involvement. I know from Parks, like I think I said before, just the only way this is going to work is if we have a lot of help from a lot of people.
All right. Well,
for sure.
We'll do our best to help throw people your way. All right. Great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So next up, we have some appointments. So that are, I guess, appointments. These are, okay. Okay. So first, we have Deborah Bro, an appointment to the Historic District Commission for a term to expire 6/30/26. I don't believe that she is here, but we.
She's right there, second.
Oh. Yes.
You're B?
She's B. Yes. Yeah. So Deborah Bro is already on the historical commission, and then this would be an additional appointment to the Historic District Commission, because the two committees are often working like effectively in an overlapping way. Any other comments on that? Okay, so I would be looking for a motion.
I move to appoint Deborah Bro to the Historic District Commission, term to expire 6/30/26, and Barb Bayer.
Yeah, actually, I didn't mention the next one. So maybe why don't we start with, just.
Second.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All right, so all in favor? Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Morale, aye.
And then we have, oh, sorry, thank you, Brendan. So, and then we have B, we have Barbara Beyer for Cultural Council, term to expire 6/30/27, and she is here. Do you want to come up to the table?
Sure. It's nice to see you all live in person.
Great. And then
watch you on TV.
If you could say your name into the microphone.
It's okay.
Yes.
I'm Barb Beyer. I live at 103 North Avenue, and I'm interested in joining the Cultural Commission. I watched a year's worth of meetings on YouTube. Very interesting. And last night I went and met 4 of the members, and they couldn't have been nicer. I mean, they're just wonderful people. And I thought maybe that might be something I could contribute. It's kind of up my alley.
Thank you very much for stepping up to volunteer.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
Thank
much.
you.
And
Well, I saw it on TV when I was looking for the select board meeting. It came up on the Mendon channel that they were looking for volunteers.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. It's good to know those ads work.
Yeah, and so I wrote to them, then Jeremy was nice enough to explain to me the process of what you have to go through, and so here I am.
And I did hear from the chair of the Cultural Council, and they do support the appointment.
They
of
were
Barb
very
Beyer,
nice,
so,
yes.
So then, I guess I would be looking for a motion here.
So moved, as you already read it.
Yeah, okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you so much.
All in favor? Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Morale, aye.
Janelle, aye.
All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time
Thank you
tonight.
very much. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Yes.
The expiration's a year later than the original. 6/20.
Yeah.
Is that right? 6/27. Did we
Oh,
clarify that?
so, I would move then to amend the last motion
Okay.
to extend the term to expire for Barb Beyer on the Cultural Council to June 30th, 2027.
Second.
I didn't catch that.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Morale, aye.
Janelle, aye.
All right. Thank you. All right, so then we have a somewhat more complicated set of appointments. So I think Bill Ambrosino, if you could join us again. I don't, Jeremy, did you want to start us off on this?
So, thank you. And thank you, Bill, Chair of the Planning Board, Bill Ambrosino. So we have 6 names listed here, which were in your packet in a letter of support from Bill and the Planning Board. There was some discussion on what other membership we might or might not want to add. And when this agenda was posted, we didn't have commitments from folks who were interested in the committee. Since the agenda has been posted between then and now, 2 people have expressed interest and supported by the planning board as well, and should be considered for appointment. I urge the select board to consider them for appointment tonight as well. They're not on the agenda, but the folks are Ann Mazar as a representative of land use, and then Matt Clark as a representative of ZBA. So in addition to those folks listed here, those 2 names should be added as well.
Okay, and then actually, if Bill, could you just give us a little bit of a rundown of this zoning bylaws review committee?
Yes, some time back, I had, after we took on the task of creating Mendon's first master plan, I coordinated with CMRPC. They've been a tremendous resource for us. Of course, they funded I was able to get a grant for the master plan. And then came along, one of the things I've wanted to tackle since I've been in office is rewriting our zoning bylaws because they're so outdated. It makes it difficult for the planning board to enforce them. And it makes it difficult even at the ZBA level where probably too much stuff is being passed through the ZBA that we have unnecessarily, we should have been handled within the zoning bylaws a long time ago. We just, it never seems to be enough time. So I was able to get a grant through CMRPC to rewrite our zoning bylaws. They did a diagnostic first. They're working. The way this zoning board bylaw review committee is working is they're doing the diagnostic, presenting us what they feel is a good fit based on the master plan, is a good fit for the town of Mendon, and kind of relative to what's going on around us, the area towns like Upton and Uxbridge, and they're kind of making suggestions. And it'll be up to the board to review those suggestions and make a decision what the, not the board, the committee sees is a good fit for the town of Mendon. And, you know, once those are created, then we can hold a public hearing through planning and present them to the town floor. Now, this has to be done by the end of June of next year. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Based on the CMRPC grant?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a lot of work to be done between now and the end of June next year. So I think we've put together a good group of people. There are people, a few of those people were part of the master plan committee. And this committee right now, I've also applied for a grant to rewrite our subdivision rules and regulations, with need probably more of an overhaul than the zoning board. And there's a very good, extremely good chance we're going to get that grant also. So this committee would handle both of those. I think it's a good opportunity for men to get these bylaws corrected, you know, and like I said, brought up to this century. But I mean, we're working on some zoning bylaws that were written back in 1970. I mean, obviously the climate's a little different. I grew up in this town. There were like 2,000 people in Mendon. Mike can speak to it. 2,000 people in this town in 1970. But I mean, obviously we're a much different community today. So I think this is long overdue. And I think this board, this list of names is a good representative of the town. they worked very well on the master plan committee, some of them. So I think we know when we create these committees, the commitment from the people that are on them is extremely important. That's why I'm comfortable with that list.
So you want these 6 plus the other 2 for a total of 8?
Yes.
Well, yeah, because Dylan and Jack, I guess, are automatically a part of
They,
it.
right, they are not
Yeah, they're not members, so to speak, but
But we've got,
residents.
so the recommended group is Billy Ambrosino, Lisa Hilton, Monty Tinio, Ellen Agro, Liana Moore. Really? That's great. She was on there the last time, right?
yeah, let me tell you what, we're very fortunate to have Liana. I mean, she's a lawyer who does zoning. She's a zoning lawyer, basically.
No, that's,
So,
and then Brendan Chanel, Ann Mazar, and Matt Clark.
yeah, I think they're all good. I think it's going to be a very good group to achieve this task. And I think the task is
Just made a motion.
Okay, and so then just add in the term to expire.
Yeah, the term to expire June 30th, 2025.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion?
This is great.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, all in favor? Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Morale, aye.
Chanel abstain.
Yeah, because
he's on the committee. Can't vote for himself.
we all just step back and left standing there, so.
Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Look good, Billy.
Okay, all right, so next up, we have item 12, which is the General Bylaws Review Committee proposal. So is this Jason, or did you have something you wanted to start us with?
Yeah, I will just say what I meant by, Jason said catchy name before. There was some confusion recently about the 2 different committees, so I think it will be important for folks to say Zoning Bylaws Review Committee and General Bylaws Review Committee. I think their existence in the same conversation will be less after tonight when they're back-to-back agenda items, but just be cognizant of that when you're speaking of the committee to reference which one specifically. But I'll leave it to Jason to introduce the actual committee.
So in your packet is just a charter document that gives an overhaul of what we're looking to do here. And just like Bill just said, for the zoning bylaws, the general bylaws are in an equal state and are in need of heavy review. There are a lot of people who are interested in seeing that done, but are looking to do that with other people and not alone. And the board itself, we've been doing this for some of us for longer than others, but what I've realized this year is that there is an absolute need for expert level research to be done in a detailed manner so that we are well aware of the decisions we're making, so that we can inform the public. It seems like a committee like this could be established to help us. And so we would be looking to post this to the website, looking for members. You can see here that we're saying that we would consist of no less than 3 members with representation from planning. I've already talked to Dylan about helping us out there. And then there are other members interested, but we will deal with that when we go to charter the committee. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have about what you see listed.
Can I make a point about the vacancies?
Yes.
So you talked about 45-day vacancy, or talked about posting these positions and asking for letters of interest and going through the normal process, which we just didn't do for the thing before this. So I just want to address that in that we have a time-bound grant with the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, and we've appointed, the positions are as members of another committee, they then become part of this committee. Whereas, and they dissolve at the end of this fiscal year. Whereas the General Bylaws Review Committee, as presented, is a standing committee. It will be, we'll take folks who can be on other committees, of course, but it won't be through nature of their association with that committee. And we'll take general letters of interest from any folks in the community, and then it's my expectation that this committee will last, beyond the end of the fiscal year. Stuff can be brought up on kind of on a rolling basis for them. So I just want to distinguish about the structure and the process.
And I will say, this was one of the, I believe this was a goal that we talked about in our goal setting meeting. I know it was among the recommendations.
It's on the flip chart.
It's on the flip chart,
It's one of
yeah.
the things that was waiting for Jeremy,
Right, right.
and
So-
here he is.
So, yes, thank you for, pushing this forward, Jason.
Absolutely.
This is, something that we've all wanted, so yes, again, small group of people focused on a common goal is, really helpful for moving us forward.
Yep.
So what do we need to do tonight?
I didn't put a motion in here, I apologize. I didn't quite know where this was going, but you can make a motion to create the committee based upon the charter here. You can make proposed amendments and I can circulate an amended charter. And then how many vacancies you want to post. It says no less than 3 members. We can post, an open call and decide after that how many you want based upon how many responses you get.
4 plus Dylan.
Right.
And her, but
So we could actually make a motion for the 4.
can we do? No, we can't. We still have to. Oh, you mean for the total count? Yes.
I feel like, 5 would be a good number.
Yeah, I don't want to go too big because this is something that's really more about advisement.
Right.
So that can get muddy with a lot of people.
Yeah, I think 5 in some ways is easier, right? A quorum for a 4-person group is 3 and a quorum for a 5-person group is 3. So
Right.
like if you have that one other person, it feels like it might be easier to get that quorum. But I'd be in favor of 5 people.
I like 5.
I also like 5.
Sure, 5 is great.
So I would move then to post 5 committee members to charter this general bylaws committee as listed in this document provided.
Is it a general bylaws committee or a general bylaws review committee?
Yes, it should be a general bylaws review committee, and I should edit this document.
So move, I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All right.
I will say we have a practice of staggering terms, so not the whole board doesn't turn over at once.
Right.
So the eventual motion, even though the folks join at the same time, they'll have terms that stagger at different expirations that we'll arrange with the town clerk.
Okay.
And we'll do that at the point of appointing. We'll be stating the,
Yes.
date.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor? Brugos, aye.
Voted aye.
Cooter, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
No, I.
Great.
General question, how are you going, it seems like we're starting to promote some very focused new committees or committees, and we're looking to, would this be the right time to push the capital improvement committee? Start to look for candidates, so I don't know how you're gonna push it for this, but if there's a broader view, it's like this committee, capital improvement committee.
I think that would be good and then sometime in the next few meetings to bring that up.
Yeah, we got 1 express letter of interest for the capital improvement committee.
What's it from
All right, so it's getting late, so, yeah. I think maybe that can be a future agenda topic. Which is, so next up is 13 Central Mass CMRPC fiscal 25 alternate delegate.
I'll contextualize this
Yes.
one. Communities with less than 8,000 people, the planning board appoints the delegate to CMRPC, and then the select board appoints the alternate. So Bill Ambrosino is the planning board's delegate. I'm not sure who it was previously.
I did it last year, and it was incredibly difficult to make things. They talk all the time, and now there's a lot of good information.
Okay, I see.
But I ended up watching a lot of video and not necessarily attending as many meetings. They meet Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Yeah, they're very busy, and it's also very informative. But I can't dedicate
Dylan
time
not
to
be
it.
our alternate because she's a member of CMRPC, right?
It needs to be a Mendon resident.
Yeah.
I asked that too.
Okay. Do we need to decide this tonight?
You don't,
And
it's
it doesn't
for
have-
fiscal year 25,
Okay,
you do
and
it
it-
each fiscal year.
Okay, and does it need to be, so the select board appoints someone, does it need to be a select board member
How
or?
often do they meet?
Like almost every Tuesday.
So weekly, and it's on a Tuesday morning?
Yeah, Tuesday at 10 is the rural check-in for CMRPC. And
Is the expectation that the alternate attends every meeting?
it's just the alternate should be aware of what's happening. I brought some of these things to the meeting without saying I'm directly bringing CMRPC information to the meeting. It's background knowledge that affects our area. It's good to have somebody know. It's just very hard to stay up to date.
I'll know better in another week if I have time. That would interest me. I just gotta make sure that I can. Is it typically an hour?
Half an hour to an hour, yeah. And they're very responsive. Like they're very good at answering questions. And they're very energetic.
So maybe can we bump it?
Yeah.
Why don't we bump it to our next meeting, and then if Mike, if that works out for you, that would be great. Okay. All right, then, select board policies and procedures, comments and discussion. I know there were a few things, but I wonder, I guess I propose, we haven't had a new draft circulated recently.
No, so,
So-
is that kind of how we want to go forward, incorporate those comments and circulate a draft?
I think so. So Brendan, what do you think?
I mean, that would make sense to me. I think I would feel more comfortable if the comments were, incorporated into the draft, and then we can review it and say yes, no, in the meeting versus hashing over every person's comment. As long as the comments aren't conflicting.
Right, so maybe a new draft, but maybe with some comments if there are a new annotated draft perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Highlighted changes.
I know I had a bunch of comments about the whole appointment process, so, which, but I feel like it would be better if we all were looking at the same thing to have that discussion.
Okay.
I will touch base, Katie and I will touch base with Brendan to turn that into an action.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think
Good to me.
I do want to talk through that, but I think we really need to set the special town meeting date. So, right, open the warrant and set the date. I mean, I think, do we need to set the date before we open the warrant or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's how the motion is
Yes,
written.
yeah. So Jeremy, I know you have been in contact with a number of key players. Can you talk us through our options?
Yeah, certainly. So I spoke with the assessors, town clerk, moderator, FinCom, the school department because of the physical space we use, and then Dan Byer because he runs the clickers. And we're going to get some more folks trained on how to use the clickers, but right now Dan's the only one who knows how to do it. And Dan graciously sent a list of every day he's available from the end of September through the end of November. But then, like I said, talking with all those other folks, it really cools it down quickly. So from the assessor's perspective, the earlier the better. That's just generally. From the clerk's perspective, she's at a conference a week in November, and she wants to kind of avoid the election day as much as possible. We were looking at, after all this, looking at late days in late October to make happen. Let me pull up a calendar here.
Do we have any legal requirements?
It's a special town meeting. You can have one every week if you want to. From the
To place the date.
When are we gonna have free cash certified?
Before the end of October is my anticipation. But
Shouldn't do it, we should not do the fall special town meeting before we know what we have for numbers.
yeah,
So I would
we
move
late
it into,
November then?
move it into, well, if we know we're gonna have it in October, it's gonna be in November, not October, but in November.
But after the election is what, the 5th? When's the election?
November 5th is the election. That's a Tuesday. So November 1st is the Friday before.
I'm thinking the week of November 10th to the 16th.
So we can't do it on Veterans Day, or the
Right.
school be closed for,
And
What is that when
and then
Dan is?
Dan Byer's not available that entire week. So that is not, we can work around that piece.
Is he available the week after?
Ellen is only available the Monday.
Right, Ellen is away the 19th through the 22nd.
Can we do it on the 19th, November 19th?
Or
That's,
the
she's-
18th?
Yeah, we can do it on the
18th,
18th.
I'm sorry.
Monday, the
Yeah.
18th?
Laura, is there work she needs to do the
So-
next day after we finish up? And she would be on vacation? No.
No, not the immediate next day.
Not that day, she could.
The town moderator said that Mondays are especially difficult for him.
Okay.
Yeah, because, but I'm sure he could get out of work a little early.
Yeah,
And what's,
Last week in October.
what's the 15th? Is
15th.
that,
The Friday.
Dan's not here.
So then we push, I think we pushed it into Thanksgiving week, the next week. It's,
yeah, we can't do it Thanksgiving week.
Can we walk through the free cash process?
Walk through the free cash.
Well, in terms of the timing, so we need to submit, to be quote certified, is the state saying, yeah, your numbers are right.
Yep.
Right? But we know what numbers we've submitted. Right?
Yeah, I'm actually meeting with the accountant tomorrow.
So when will we submit our free cash estimates?
Likely in the next handful of weeks.
yeah, they should be submitted by mid-September.
Yeah.
And typically, we know in about a month.
The earlier the better. The state likes to get them, because they're trying to, from all the stuff I'm seeing, they're trying to get it to as early as possible. And the earlier we get it to them, the quicker the turnaround is, because it's gonna bog down the longer we wait, right? I'm still looking at the last week in October.
I'm wondering about
Just because we went through most of November.
Monday the 28th or Wednesday the 30th
Of October?
of October.
What do you do if you don't have a certified number back?
But
What if you have a number and you want to appropriate money and you can't appropriate it now because you don't know what it is?
Is it gonna be
mean,
far
how-
off our estimate? Does
Doesn't
that
matter.
happen?
It's
Doesn't
gonna
matter. Has to be certified
Can't
for you to
But you
appropriate.
you can't appropriate free cash, but do you have other sources you could appropriate from and then replenish? You don't,
You have to replenish it then, so you have to have another meeting.
well, in the spring at the ATM. My point is, free cash is one source of funds, right? And I'm not sure what our expectation is in terms of what are we gonna be, I mean, we should, I mean, I understand there's a risk there. I acknowledge the risk.
And there's no reason to take the risk. Just do it in November like we do every other year.
I mean, I guess that we had the request to do it earlier from the assessors, but I mean, the earliest we can do it in November is November 18th.
Okay, so it's either that last week of October or the third week.
So October 30th is practically November. I mean, there's not a lot of like
Yeah.
between like November 1st and October 30th.
Right.
I mean, do we think we're expecting the
Well,
free
there's a-
cash to be certified by the end of October?
Well, there's a reason when you look historically, we've typically done it the week before Thanksgiving.
Right,
That's when it usually falls for a number of reasons.
right.
Between the November election and not Thanksgiving, and trying to make sure that we have all the numbers figured out. And the other thing too is, once we do know what free cash is, then we have to figure out, what we're gonna do with it. We need a little bit of time to do that.
But I mean, that's where I would say we should be figuring that out while we're waiting for certification. Certification should either say we can or we can't.
I don't disagree.
Right. So my point is, it doesn't, once again, we don't need to sequence it. That certification date is just the green light, in my mind.
Right, but you're also voting a warrant close date, and it's my,
And the earlier you do it, the earlier you have to close the warrant.
right, and you want like a month in between closing the warrant and having the meeting, because we print and mail to everybody. So, yeah, it's a good point that even a November 18th closing of the warrant is an October 18th, November 18th meeting is an October 18th closing of the warrant. So that would be tight on, there's no way there's gonna be free cash if we were in mid-October.
All right, well, it sounds like we answered our question.
So then, I mean, I think, what about November 18th? Because the following week is Thanksgiving week.
Yep.
So, and Ellen is away the 19th through the 22nd. So that leaves one day.
Yep.
Okay. So are there any, like, were there any, so it's not early as was hoped for by the assessors, but with all the other constraints, it's what we have.
Why did they want it earlier?
There is a calendar by which the tax rate gets set and then tax bills get out, and it gives them more time to be able to do that.
Apparently there's a backlog at the state because everybody's doing this at the same time.
Yep.
So the earlier they get it in, the faster.
Right. If you're looking at the 30th, your warrant close date's September 30th, is what you're saying, right?
So, yeah, and that,
Yes, that's not enough time.
Why?
Because September really doesn't start until the second week. So,
Well, I mean, we could open the warrant tonight.
Right, we will open the
Right.
warrant tonight.
So,
I mean, yeah.
so I'm just saying, 5 weeks for a warrant to be open is not enough time to get our warrant submissions in.
I felt like we were rushed last year.
For the.
Last year was a
for
little
the-
more.
For the annual town
Yeah, for the
meeting?
annual,
But the
sorry,
annual
the
town
last one.
meeting, there's more.
Yeah. There was more financial hoops we were jumping through.
So Mike, it sounds like you're in favor of the November 18th date.
I'm in favor of more time, November.
More time.
I don't have a strong feeling either way. I just want to ask the
I
question.
can do November 18th.
I mean, just so we're clear, I'm in complete agreement with you. We need to do these things in parallel.
Yeah.
We just haven't been through this iteration for more than a decade now. That we need to give ourselves the time to get all the i's dotted and t's crossed. So that's why November 18th is kind of the sweet spot.
Right. And Brendan, how about you? Any concerns for the 18th?
I don't have any concerns. I think it's probably better to play it safe than the alternative.
So can I make a motion that we set the date for the fall 2024 special town meeting for November 18th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Second.
just want to set the location in the motion as well?
At the Misco Middle School auditorium.
Second that as well.
I mean, so like if the motion, do we want to like open it as well with the same motion?
Well, I think let's set the meeting for the
Okay.
meeting date, right?
Okay. Any further discussion? One thought is that we are going to be voting on the senior center, and it's going to be like, I guess a couple weeks before.
Yeah.
Before we have an amount.
Right.
But, I mean, we were expecting it to be sort of, originally we were expecting it to be
Actually, if we
after.
but there's no reason, to Mike's point, there's no reason we can't, have the warrant set, have the language set, so that.
But the numbers aren't in the warrant. That's in the motion.
Yeah, but we'll, The
Right,
only
we'll
reason-
communicate.
The only reason they're not in there is because we don't put them in.
Oh, okay,
I mean, we
okay.
get, there's no reason we can't tell people this is the number. As a matter of fact,
Oh, we'll be telling people, sure.
Right,
yeah.
okay,
so I think we can.
okay.
Phil's gonna tell everybody.
Especially if it's favorable.
Right.
So, all right, so any further discussion? All right, so all in favor, Brugos, aye?
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Janelle, I.
Great. All right, then I'd be looking for a motion to open the warrant.
So moved.
And set a,
Second.
and set a close date. Do you want to, you can do
Oh,
it.
okay, yes, and set a close date, sorry. Do we,
Do we generally do this 30 days after open, or like, what's our,
Yeah, I spoke with Ellen earlier today, and she said it's generally been a month. So just November 18th to October 18th. October 18th is a weekday, it's a Friday, so that works nicely.
all right, so I would move then to close the fall special town meeting warrant on October 18th, 2024.
sorry, so now we've got like two motions.
Can I make a third?
Okay,
To
Move
amend
to open
both.
the warrant, for fall special town meeting warrant, open it tonight and close it on October 18th, 2024.
is there a second for that
Second.
one? All right, any further discussion? All in favor, Brugos, aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Chanel, I.
Great.
Did you get all of that?
My move was canceled and removed, and
All right, so then we did it, thank you all. So select board liaisons to boards and committees, we've had this show up a few times. I know I had one change, which is that we wanted to swap for the senior center expansion committee, that Mike be the primary select board liaison, I'd be the alternate. I think that was not in the chart. I think it was a separate document.
Yeah, sorry, which one?
So the senior center,
Okay, switch those two.
Yeah.
I flipped you for the
school, yeah, thank you. It's
Got it.
just, I think in practice, Mike has been able to attend more of those meetings than I have.
I
Had
think we
overlap.
both attend them all.
Mostly.
I
guess
think
there's been a
almost like
couple to-
99% attendance rate.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
true. We have pretty good attendance rate.
Mike's handing out certificates.
But yeah, I want to give Mike, okay, I want to give Mike more of a chance to vote, so, yeah.
So I don't know about this one. These are not binding positions, or, there's no mandate to have these as official select board positions. So I don't know that we even need a motion on this, which is why I didn't write one here and didn't put all the stuff here. So there's a circulated list. As we go through the boards and commissions on our website, my plan is to make sure the select board liaisons are listed on the commission. So they'll be posted and available there. But it's the list that was circulated. It's the same as last year. Mike Moroli the changes are Mike Moroli is on BVT school committee as a liaison. Brendan Chanel is a historic district commission liaison. Mike Goddard and Elena Brugos flipped on both from Elena primary, Mike secondary. They flipped this year on both the Mendon Regional School District and the Senior Center Architectural Building Committee. Everything else remains the same as fiscal 2024.
Yeah, when this came up last time, I threw it out there, whether or not, if anybody was interested in doing the Mendon Upton School, because I've been doing it for a while. It's a process it's an interesting process if you want to participate, so it's a big one. If not, I'll just, stay with what's on the piece of paper.
And they have a lot of subcommittees too.
And honestly, I plan on focusing more on subcommittees than the actual meetings.
Okay, so I mean, in practice, we may not really change. I went to the school committee meeting on Monday, and I'll keep going when I can. I just can't always go. Okay, great, thank you. And then, let's see, any other topics not reasonably anticipated? I think old business, I feel like we've covered things. Town administrator report.
Yeah, I'll make this brief. thanks for everyone who made Congressman Jake Austin-Klaus' visit a success. We talked about the water study, we talked about the senior center and the congressional earmark. It was a great opportunity to get some federal stakeholders in Bend here and ask for money in the future. Like I said, I'm working on a taxpayer impact study for the possible senior center debt, so more on that to come later. On the compensation classification study, I talked about Concord last time and what the great materials they had. I delved into that a little bit more, and there was a really wide-ranging study, lots of bespoke positions, and I think too intense of what we were looking for. It became too much of a bear to carve theirs down into what I thought we wanted. So I've talked with some smaller communities, talked to Norfolk today, who recently did one, where they did a couple and learned lessons. So I'm going to pursue that route next. I'm on a broader kind of policy review project. Our personnel policies need updating, our financial policies need updating. If it's not in financial, our purchasing policies need to be created and implemented. So that's kind of this slow burn for me that I'll keep the committee anticipated with. Kicked off capital. I have 2 more department head discussions to have where I can circulate out my memo and my working document to them. So I've been working with Mike Goddard closely on that. I've gotten out of the office a little bit and got to meet a few TAs in the region, which has been really helpful for me to see how other folks are doing things, to just think about the industry generally, and bring some of that back to Mendon. And then lastly, this could be a topic for a different meeting, but I think it's important for collaboratively the board and myself to set what my goals are for fiscal 25, what I think they are, what you think they should be are, to have 3, maybe 4 to execute, besides getting town meeting and free cash certified and all those sorts of things. I want to make sure we're working towards the same things.
3 or 4 apiece.
So that's as concise as I can get.
Great, thank you. All right, so future agenda topics, back to you, Jeremy.
Sure. So the deliverable from the Collins Center organizational study project, the deliverable was to conduct a retreat with the select board. David Colton from the Collins Center gave us a list of 6 or 7 dates that I happened to get an email when Elaine and I were meeting about something. So we went through our availability and came down with these 3 dates from there. Saturday, September 14th, Thursday, September 19th, and Saturday, September 28th. I had asked them to give us both weekday and weekend availability to see what the board's availability was. This will be a few hours. I can kind of call it, or we can kind of, set that expectation and when it starts and where we have it, and all those things will flow from this. We need to pick a date first and get that locked in with David and locked in with you all. And I think it's important, and David thinks it's important, that all 5 of you are present in person. I think it just it doesn't, the facilitation, the brainstorming, all of that, it's best practice to have everybody present. So keep that in mind if you want to talk about your availability on those 3 dates.
14th and
14th, 19th, 28th.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, tell me I should go back and read the manual.
28th is Saturdays?
14th and 28th are Saturdays. It's going to be a longer session. A lot of times these things are conducted on the weekends just because you likely don't have 4 hours in the middle of your workday to do something like this.
I think Thursdays are tricky for Brendan, but I'm available all 3 dates.
Do we want to send our availability to Jeremy if we don't know off the top of our heads?
I'll know better in a week again. So
Okay.
Okay.
So we can maybe schedule this by email. But yeah, I guess if anyone has any known conflicts now, we could cross off the date.
And the sooner the better. Since David sent our initial list, one of the dates he sent us, he then emailed me and said, sorry, that's been booked by something else.
Happily, it
It's
wasn't.
booked. Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't one of these. It was one that either Elaine or I forget couldn't make anyway.
I prefer the 14th, just so it's on the recording, but I can make all 3.
Okay.
I second that. I can make all 3, but the 14th would be my preference.
Same.
And we'll see what happens with Mike.
So
No
you'll
pressure.
keep us posted.
Okay.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right, so we'll do that over email. And then other future agenda topics, Mike, you brought up whether we want to bring capital planning.
Yeah, just more of a piggyback, whatever promotion we're gonna do for other, I mean, capital planning is out there. We just need to source it, right? So if you're gonna do something specifically to the bylaw, just maybe expand that, with any sort of promotion, but don't forget about capital planning. But I do think that, to Jeremy's point, he's sort of launched, he did a soft launch of the capital planning process that the working groups are starting to put in place. So an update in September, or, late September, early October probably makes sense. In fact, we actually had that as an action item. The working group wants to get in front of the select board to give an update.
Actually, I guess relatedly, we need to make final decisions about ARPA money, right?
Yeah, so it's on my list for tonight, on my list, but yeah, there's roughly low $200,000 left that needs to be committed to a contract by the end of calendar year 2024.
I know some things that are.
We can always replace, right, push it off. It's ARPA, right?
The person who did that audit
Yeah,
had
we
some
are
other
allowed
suggestion.
to take that 200,000 and replace something in the budget. So that frees up money that will go down in free cash next year.
Yeah, so the money was, as my understanding, or my anticipation, I actually didn't look, I just assumed, that the town took all the money as revenue replacement funds, designated them all as revenue replacement funds, which means you can use it for any lawful municipal purpose, including, supplanting what your initial stuff was, which you usually can't do with federal funds. So yeah, but it has to be committed to a contract. We can't just say in the course of fiscal 2025, we're going to pay $200,000 worth of, whatever, salt for the stone ice program. It has to be in a committed contract by the end of 2024.
What were we just talking about? What's the next phase of this culvert, right, to design?
So anyhow, I propose we have that at an upcoming meeting.
I would, ARPA is a source for capital. I mean, I would bring that up in our next working group meeting, because there's a laundry list, turnout gear for the fire department, 250,000,
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Any other future agenda items people want to get on the radar?
Oh, yes, but not for the next agenda.
We can, okay.
Yeah.
We'll bring it up next time.
IT policy coming up.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. All right, then, next meetings, Jeremy already mentioned that, but it was so long ago. Right, our next regular meeting is September 4th. I know, it was. And then we have the planning board joint meeting on September 16th at 6 p.m. for the housing production plan, because both boards need to vote on the housing production plan. So this is an attempt to streamline it so that there's one presentation and one opportunity to vote. And I see item 22. So I would entertain.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor? There goes aye.
Goddard, aye.
Cooter, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Chanel, aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks for hanging in there.
Hey, have a good one.
All right, so meeting adjourned, whatever time it is, 9:37.
Hold on.
Is,
Stop recording? Yeah.